It's yet another Write Once, Read Many. This time... Ooh! Forgot to change the name. This time we will be covering 16.z and 16.11. And I have Vic with me.
Hello.
So I'm still getting the link out there if you want to talk at the people for a moment.
Talk at the people. Here, let me click on this incorrectly titled video.
I know it's terrible.
I'm
But
just kidding.
by the time I send out the link, it should be...
Then it should be fixed. No, it does look good on my side. Yeah, sorry to everyone for pushing out a week. It was because I had COVID.
Oh!
Like a legend, but I mean, I feel like I sound mostly better, but it's also hard to tell because I've been like this the whole time. But also, Kason is very, very sick. It sounds very, very bad.
You sound mostly normal. I heard you talking on the phone, like... Oh, also I gotta start the art. I heard you from the next room talking on the phone the other day on, like, Tuesday, I think, and you sounded bad.
Yeah, and the thing is, I was, like, mostly... Like, I was so sick on, what the fuck days? Wednesday and... So it was last week I got sick. I was the sickest on Friday and Saturday last week. And I'm like mostly better now, but oh my gosh. It just seems like a very long time for me. I don't normally get sick. And typically when I'm sick, there's like the startup day, and then there's like the day where you're sick, and then there's like the ending day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know. You usually not sick for very long.
Yeah, it was really stressed because I kept like messaging people and being like, don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow. Do you like this picture that I used for Marquis?
I do find it very funny, that smiling guy.
Yeah, he's like so happy.
Hey!
He had the pose that I wanted. Sometimes I feel like so awkward with like the references that I choose because they're like, I don't know. It can be really questionable sometimes.
I understand.
but he had the right vibes going on. But yeah, thank you, Greg. I'm glad I'm feeling better too. It was honestly like I felt almost exactly the same as I felt when I had gotten the booster like 2 months ago. So I feel like it's like it cut it in half instead of having it all at once. Which was good because I got really sick when I had the booster too.
I got the booster and I didn't get sick at all, but I haven't gotten sick from any of the vaccines.
Yeah, I got sick from the original vaccine. I got like a 24-hour sick.
Yeah, I remember that one being like kind normal. Of I as I recall, that one hit you kind of hard.
Yeah. This is Anatomy of a Broken Family. And we've got our diagram 1 of absentee father and then diagram 2 of hollow daughter. They're pretty cute. Marquis kind of looks like Jesus. Like I was like,
he's Jesus.
I felt like I should lean into it because it's like I was reading his description and they don't really say ever what he looks like except that he's really hot. And he's got like long Amy hair, but I assume that it's like a better version of her hair.
I have this thing where I can't stop, like, I always like accidentally think of him as looking like Captain Harlock from the CG version of Captain Actually, no, even
let me go look at that.
Look at the super old anime version. I still think of him like that.
Anime Captain Harlock. I always imagine him as like a hot Hispanic dude. It's kind of like,
well, this guy could be Hispanic if he had darker hair,
tousled hair.
But like in the movie, he's got like black hair.
So emo for a grown ass man, though.
Well, he's like I've only seen the CG movie, but he's like got this super weird backstory where he's like locked in time. Look at the CG version of him, and I think it'll be more like what I'm thinking, because he's got like black hair in that, and he has like an evil parrot on his shoulder that actually reminds me of one of the cryptid forms.
This is a little bit less emo. The anime one is like a full, like a grown out beaver swoosh.
I know.
But yeah, I feel like they like never we like don't get like a grand description of Marquis until probably much later, and nobody bothered to put it in the wiki. But he's got longer hair. He seemingly has a beard because they note when he's clean cut. So Jesus beard, Jesus hair, Jesus face of despair. I'm very happy with how they turned out. They look very sad. And this was inspired, maybe I should post it. This was like inspired by a reference that I was looking at. Very unrelated. It was the bone structure of let's see. It was titled Ideal Woman Body versus Deformed by Tight Corseting. And like the ribs are all fucked up in the corseted one. But I was just looking at I wanted like a kind of Renaissance romantic anatomical sketch kind of thing. So
Greg says basically something I was thinking. He starts with Captain Harlock predates Bieber, and then follows it through with his own idea, which is Bieber has the Harlock swoop.
Okay. Bieber saw Captain Harlock anime version, and he said, I want that but a little bit shorter, is what happened.
Yeah. Make me look slightly more like a scene kid.
2 + 4 × 5 says, personally I like to pronounce Marquis as Marquis. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, I think that part of the joke is to make fun of either pronunciation by just not changing how the spell. Yeah. There's no phonetic spelling here, audio only listeners.
I know what he meant, and I prefer to pronounce things wrong. I like to pronounce it Eidolon, and wait, do I even say Eidolon? Is Eidolon? I can't even remember which one is right anymore.
I like Eidolon. I think Eidolon is more correct, but I like Eidolon because it sounds awesome.
It depends. It honestly, it just depends on which audiobook reader I've been listening to most recently.
Yeah,
Marquis is
I'm gonna say Eidolon and Eidolon. I guarantee you.
Baklava is gonna be baklava. Okay.
Famous type of faceware baklava.
Greg says the English pronunciation of Marquis does make me barf a little, but I guess that's in line with his character. Are you kidding? I love hashtag Marquis does nothing wrong. Okay, like we'll get into it.
Marquis is just like a hot dad, you know? It's like whatever. It's like, shut up. He's a hot dad.
I know. I'm sure, and I know that he's gonna like do bad stuff later when he's like. I think the problem is here that he's like in an environment with a lot of like really evil people, and so anything that he does is gonna come off as reasonable.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Also, before we move on from the art, I had wanted to mention that whenever you draw Amy, and I didn't know if you're doing this on purpose or not, but all of your drawings of Amy just look like you to me.
I know. I was thinking that after I finished this one.
Like this one even more than all the other ones.
This literally looks just like me. Amy looks like me, but she has she's got like more downturned hooded eyes and more of mouse nose than I do. I think I've got rat nose and she's got mouse nose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think she's also got like probably doesn't have as well, maybe she does cuz she's pretty like fucked. I mean, like I was going to say her like bags under her eyes. You and I both have fairly pronounced bags under her eyes.
Yeah. I always give her bags under her eyes, but it's always because she's having a really bad day.
Yeah.
it's not that she as a person has bags under her eyes, it's that she's having a really bad day. So yeah, she does always end up looking like me. Um, let's see. 2 plus 4 times 5 says Marquis chose his name pronunciation in order to hurt people to their core because that'll also break everybody's bones. I feel it in my bones. Yeah.
And Greg had said hot
He
bone daddy.
Bone Daddy. Okay, we're gonna say Marquis. It'll be okay. What does Marquis mean? What is the I don't really know.
It's the same rank that Vriska tries to give herself because her
Oh
ancestor is a
man.
Marquis.
Okay.
So it's a Vriska. It's a ye old uh legal pirate.
Honestly, he would stand Vriska. If I would
He'd read
petition
it and he'd just be like,
for
I don't think that this troll has done anything wrong yet.
I would petition oh my God, Dragon to send a physical copy of Homestuck for everyone
Oh
for
man,
everyone to read.
I have physically pained 2 plus 4 times 5.
It's a French word that means no, it's not Homestuck. Greg says it's a pretty high rank, higher than a court or lower than a duke. Yeah, and that's kind of his thing. He never wants to be like the man at the top, but he wants to be up there.
Yeah, he's not like Count Dooku. Also, I thought that name was really cool for a long time until I realized, based on something somebody else
Dookie.
said, that it was just Count and Duke put together. And I was like, oh, god damn it. And the people who were like hearing that on the other podcast, they were a more civilized age. They were like, oh no, that ruins the name. And it really does. So, sort of
2 plus
like
4
a
times 5 says sort of like a
regent.
regent. Great, great.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Um, But oh yes, and I wanted to come up with a question for 16.11. So if we do come up with a question by the time we get to that chapter, let me know. But the question
Mhm.
for 16.z is, which cell block leader do you find most interesting from this chapter? 16.z.
My question for 16.11 is
Yes.
why does Taylor know how to pull an emergency brake but not know how to put a car into park? Because it's very simple. But that's okay.
Well, okay,
Um,
hang on. It's not an automatic though,
I
right?
I assumed that it was a stick. So, because that's the only reason that that makes sense. But she doesn't say that it's a stick when she's driving it. But I mean, like, I would think that most military vehicles are stick.
Yeah.
But we'll
Hmm.
think about it when we get there.
Yeah. Well, hmm. Yes. Themes. I didn't write any down. Do you get any?
We've got we've got family.
The family.
Uh we've got power. Power is a really big one for Marquis, even though he's not like trying to get power during this chapter. It's like always on his mind. Um Seemingly not unprompted, like he does need to be thinking about these things because like
Mm-hmm.
people are literally coming up to him and like, I'm gonna kill you because you've been hanging out with your daughter so much. That's not exactly how it goes down, but
It's like weirdly
um
close to that. They're just like,
but it's like really close to that. Yeah, they're like, this girl is here and nobody's even dating her, so what the fuck is she doing here? um I guess like the like innate sexism of evil people is like a theme. Because like not everybody in the cell blocks are evil, but like because of the like sheer amount of evil that's in there, they kind of have to default to like really I don't even know how to say, like old style rules of power and
oh
um privilege and kind of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted by what 2 plus 4 times 5 said for a second. But I just want to. So he had said, my headcanon is that Taylor spent too long driving in the wrong gear because is in neutral. Driving in the wrong gear is in quotes. Not drive. But I've never driven manual, so maybe that'd be a better explanation. Yeah, well, if it's a manual and she doesn't put it in gear, like the more I thought about it just now, the more I'm
Oh,
like,
did
I
she
don't know
say
that
it's in
she
the wrong
could
gear?
drive a manual. No, she doesn't say that.
I
But
think this has to be an automatic
yeah,
because
it
I think
has
she
to
would have had
be.
to think way more about it. But I just can't fathom how you, because if she's ever sat in a front seat in her entire life and she's seen somebody use an emergency brake, she's also seen somebody just put it in park. So like I don't know why that would be confusing, but maybe like spent too much time. Yeah, she must. Well, literally, we'll talk about this later. It's it drove me. It was all I could think about during the whole chapter.
But yeah, like if you're not in
um,
gear and you give any gas on a vehicle, like on a manual 2 plus 4 times 5, then it just like revs the engine super loud. So
yeah, she probably wouldn't have been able to do it. And she specifically was like, I was trying to drive really quietly, and so she probably would have noticed if she had like been doing that.
now now he's saying, I don't know about the whole they're not all evil thing. Canary seem pretty damn evil to me. Mind controlling people via pop music, that's definitely deserves a birdcage sentence.
It's such a like baby superpower in like this in like the sense that it's like Mm, it just reminds me so much of a miraculous ladybug episode superpower. Like mind controlling people through pop music is like literally an episode that happens. And so I like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like so stark compared to everyone else in the third cage. Oh
She
God.
needs to use her miraculous.
Do you have any other themes? I
Um
mean, there's great like what do you do for family kind of stuff. We get some great stuff from Marquis.
I don't know if it's a theme exactly, but in 16.11, like the parallels between Taylor and Coil are like huge to me. Like they're
Hmm.
both like planning and counter, and she says this in her thing, but they're planning and counter planning like in the moment and like coming up with new strategies and like have to be
Yeah.
constantly switching what they're doing. And they both
Yeah.
control like an army of underlings, um and like I don't know. There's just like a lot of parallel there that I saw as I was like listening to the chapter and stuff a bunch.
Yeah, I agree. They fight with really similar tactics and like both of them are like obviously like thinking incredibly fast and there's like different reasons why, but both due to their power really. Hi Vale. 2 plus 4 times 5 says I've also never used neutral gear in my life, so I don't know what it does. Yeah, I think I've only used neutral gear when like pushing a car out of snow.
It
And
essentially
I don't
means that the car is not like the car cannot give power through the engine when you're in neutral. So what
mm,
you use it for is to coast because that's how you can be like as frictionless as possible. And being in neutral is the same thing on an automatic more or less as on a manual, either having the clutch pushed in or just wholesale not being in gear. Um, so neutral is like a way for an automatic to do some of the maneuvers that you just do naturally with a manual gear shift. But
he said, okay, that solidly disproves my Taylor driven neutral gear for half a mile headcanon. Know what she was
yeah,
doing, okay.
yeah.
Some cars like have
There's
I
a
don't know how to
low. There are automatic cars that still have either
yeah, that still
a
have
low
gears.
gear or a first, second, low and drive. Anything
Yeah.
they could probably have more than that, but that's the most I've ever seen is first, second, low drive, and the low is like the
Yeah,
third gear on my car, which is, pretty pretty high for a low gear, to be honest. But
yeah.
uh,
It has to have been that, like, instead of putting it in drive, she put it into like first gear or something, which
mhm.
is like just again a very London Tipton moment of her. Like, has she never does she not pay
She
attention
never
when her
looked
dad
at the
is
brindle.
driving? She never looked at the Prindle before. But London Tipton had looked at the Prindle, so she was one step ahead of her already.
That's pretty bad when
Um,
you're behind London.
um, Vale said, "Is this Taylor driving by Braille?"
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, that might have been it actually. She couldn't see the letters, so she just like moved the thing around until the car started.
You
I
want to know
forget
the
that she's
fun
blind
thing?
sometimes.
On my
Mm.
shifter, the numbers are indented into it, so you actually can
Mm.
feel, and so is the shift pattern.
Mine is a little volume knob, so Taylor definitely wouldn't have been able to figure it out blind.
Yeah, yours
She
is
would
a
have
little
gotten in the
confusing.
car.
It looks like a little spaceship turn on. Yeah.
Yeah, she would have gotten in the car and she would have been like, there's nowhere to put the keys. And then when she presses the button, she'd be like, okay, cool. And then she'd look for the gear for the stick and she would not have found anything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Coil would have come and shot her in the fucking head. So that's why you should pay attention when you're in people's cars. Um, sounds very convenient for blind drivers. Yeah. Uh, do we want to get into the chapter?
Yes, yes, we can. Vale says, when she entered the car, her first step was to carpet it in spiders, so she knew where everything was. Of course, of course.
Oh my
Um,
god.
anyway, I will let you begin.
So we join our favorite father-daughter duo, Marquise and Amy in the birdcage. Marquis calls her Amelia the whole time, but I'm not gonna call her Amelia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Amy has been staying in Marquis's cell block instead of the one she was assigned to, which I think she was assigned to the feminist one that
Lustrum.
Canary was also assigned to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
But
she
Lustrum traded
decided,
her since she was willing to go.
yeah. So he's been like having his people protect her for the time being. But he knows that this is going to kind of wear out soon because she hasn't been providing anything and she's just been like draining their resources.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been trying to convince her to hold court with him, as they call it, to establish herself. But Amy's like really, really depressed. And she's like, I don't know if you even care about me. And he's like, I do really care about you. Please help me out a little bit. And he tells her that he would give up all the power that he has in the birdcage and over the cell block if that's what he needs to do for her. Because she's family and family is most important, but she doesn't seem to really believe him. Um, and Lung is watching in on this conversation as well, which does not really help Marquis's position at this point. Um, so he has a cape come up to him, asking about the meeting that they're going to hold, and he tells them to pass on word that he's going to hold court and Amy is going to be sitting in. And he explains he'll hold audience for about an hour and it'll just be first come, first serve. And this cape uh, also is like, I don't know about this Amy girl. Everyone is it's probably not helping Amy's self-esteem that everyone around her like really just wants her gone at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty sad.
uh, so Marquis continues to worry about the issues between him taking care of Amy and like the starting to lose power over his people.
Mhm.
And he's considering causing a mutiny just so he can like come out on top and establish himself. And he thinks to himself that he's never lost a fight before, except that one time. But that was different. Except it's literally not different because the
This is the same
extenuating
situation.
circumstances. Yeah, the extenuating circumstances were that Amy was there, and Amy is currently here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the exact same situation, but
Oh, it's
whatever.
different.
But the real solution to the problem is just getting through to Amy, and he like recognizes that she's just kind of a shell of a person. Right now, like, I mean, I think we've all seen this before, where like somebody like dies inside and becomes like a husk, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Typical husk.
Typical husk person. I think it's like normally you see it like as a response to grief or whatever, which is what she's going through. Is like she's grieving Victoria and her like whole life before and everything. Dale said Amy has quite the heroic journey, starting from a place where nobody wants her. Oh, Amy, ending at a place where nobody wants her. Um, he, where was I? Oh, yeah. So he knows from experience that like people coming into the birdcage with this kind of like mentality will probably go one of four ways. They'll either be like used as a resource for their power, or they'll just be used as a resource generally as a person, or they'll be indoctrinated, or they'll recover, least likely of all. So not a lot of great options.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could get her to join one of the cults in the birdcage or something. Gail said it's technically still a journey. I guess it's a hero's journey because that's how a hero's journey ends, is that they're in the same situation as they were before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So he tells Amy to go shower and get ready and to not wear a sweatshirt because it'll make her look small and rat-like.
Yeah, you small
Um,
rat.
as she goes, he erects an X of bone spikes for her to pass through before he like just shuts off the corridor with his bones, to like intimidate the men who were looking around. And he
Man.
can tell by the way that his followers are acting generally that he's kind of running out of time
Mm-hmm.
to get her to participate in the whole situation. And he needs to convince her to demonstrate her power. So Lung comes up and he's like, I'm not gonna help you and I don't respect you. Because Lung is just like a dumb shithead. I don't know what's wrong.
He
It,
I feel like some of the maneuvers here that he's trying to pull are like not actually helpful to his own gain power cause at all. He just kind of, like you said, is a dumb shithead and will do dumb stuff half the time.
I I think that Lung just likes saying what like he's not somebody who like plays his cards close to his chest like Marquis does. Like Marquis many times throughout the chapter is like thinking one thing but saying something else, or he's like having emotions that he is very strategically keeping inside, and Lung is just not like that. Like he just has a thought and he's like, oh, I had a thought, let me go tell him.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
No,
one of our
he's just a
friends
himbo.
one of our friends had said about their mom that it's whenever there's like an intrusive thought to say something, the mom will just say that thing right away, and it's like,
Yeah,
wow, that actually is true. That seems to be what's happening.
it is. Um, so Lung has that. He like has a feeling or a thought, and he's like, obviously, I need to tell everybody this right away. So he just tells Marquis that he hates him, and
You're dumb,
Marquis is like,
motherfucker. I mean, what?
Marquis tries to tell him that it helps both of them if he's there and continues to support him, which I agree, because like when they're together, like it really intimidates other people. Like it unnerved Dragon in a way. Like she doesn't say she's like unnerved by it, but she's like, this is interesting
If they were
because
actually fighting in tandem, I feel like Marquis could just hold someone off for long enough for Lung to become
like
unstoppable,
get
more or less.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people like just with them together and being like such different personalities, like they're very scary. Um but Lung doesn't agree with this and he's like thinks he's looking down on him. And it's like kind of derogatory. Like he basically says, "Oh, you're trying to just keep a wild beast on a chain or whatever." And Marcus like doesn't really dispute that. But he tells him that he'll have a head start in usurping him once he kills him and takes over the cell block. And Lung is like, "Whoa, why would you say what you thought?" He's just like, I don't understand why you would want me to be the one to usurp you, because obviously like I would run things differently, and also why do you care because you're dead? But Marquis says he'd rather be murdered by a wild beast than an ally, which that's fair. Um, when Amy comes
I
back
don't
from
think I have a
showering,
preference between those two things necessarily.
I yeah,
I
I think
get what
he's
he's
just
saying, but like the people were mutinous one way or the other.
yeah. I think that he's just is. I also think that he's just trying to
Mhm.
convince Lung without being like too nice and pandering. Like he is calling him a wild beast to try to make him feel bad. But um, so when Amy comes back from showering, Marquis offers her a new book that came in. But she's not interested in this stupid series or in reading.
Stupid ghosts. I do like the
Vale said, "I'm
description. And
hoping
oh, sorry. Say what Vale saying.
you're good. I'm hoping it's a wild beast who is an ally." That sounds like a movie. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I find it funny that this book that's proposed to Amy is basically Twilight but a ghost.
Yeah. Which is like, to me, I love Ghost. It's like sexy Casper or something. I
Oh,
would read this series
I don't know if you
for
remember
sure.
this, but there was a news story a few years ago about a woman who married a ghost, and she had claimed in an interview too that she had joined the Mile High Club with said ghost. So
Oh,
she fucked a ghost in the bathroom of a airplane.
I
Um,
mean, I would hope it was the bathroom, but we would never know because it
it's
was a ghost.
it's
So
also
she could
it's
have just.
probably easier to sneak in there with a ghost than with a second
It's
person.
probably a lot easier to pull off, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, So he's like, well, at least my daughter has good taste. And then he tells her that in a meeting she should stay quiet unless somebody directly asks her a question, which is a technique I do use when I'm being evil at work. And she tells him that they're just gonna ask her to use her power, and she can't. And he's like, but daughter, it would be so helpful. And she's like, I can't. She's kind of a brat in this chapter, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
she's oh boy. And then she's like, I'm gonna do something dumb and trade this for info that like she should
that
have
she could have
asked.
just asked Marquis. It's like clear that
He's just like, oh my
it, it's
fucking god.
it's like not clear until like right now that she hasn't like spoken any words. Basically, Marquis has no idea. He doesn't even know what her power is still, and he doesn't know what happened with her and Victoria. He like doesn't even know why she's there. So she hasn't like communicated at all until like the next until something drastic happens to her, which is coming up in a second. Um which is just how long has she been here? Does he like indicate how long it's been?
I think it's so it's been the same number of days for her as for the Undersiders to get to this point. So she I think that it's been like 2 to 3 days, not long.
Okay, fine, I
Because
guess.
if you think about it, the bombing happened the same day that we're still on the day of the bombing, right? And the
Yeah.
bombing happens like 2 days after the start of Arc 15 or something, like maybe 3 days. I think it's only
Yeah.
maybe it's been a whole week actually, because there's like a gap
Well,
between Arc 14 and 15 of like a
yeah,
couple
and like
days.
and yeah, it's been like it's been a week or so, I think, because
Let me use
the Carol interlude was a while ago.
Parahumans
But then I guess there was
timeline.
like a time skip a little bit in the Carol interlude to like a few days later when Amy's like actually going to the birdcage. I don't know. It's been I'm gonna say it's been 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, so
Um
hang on. Between June 12th and 16th, all of the following events happen. So at some point, Amy is put. I think that happens. Um, yeah, I think that happens around like the 12th or the 13th of June, right? So that's what we're
mhm.
looking at, and then the mayoral debate is the 19th. So this is the same day as the 19th. So
Okay,
yeah, it's been either
1 week.
6 or 7 days, I think.
It's been 1 week.
Exactly.
Amy and her dad together as a team would be insanely strong. Not that any team doesn't benefit from Amy. Father-daughter villainy day would have been productive for them if they had stayed a family. Yeah, bring your daughter to work day would have been real fun.
Hmm. I
Um,
They never say it for sure, but I get the impression that off screen after this chapter, at some point in the birdcage, Amy changes Marquis's power to not cause him pain, because um I think that he's able to convince her to use her power, and then not to change brains or whatever, but I think that she could probably eliminate whatever the source of pain is, because his power didn't used to cause him pain, right? So I think that
it
even
seems like it's gotten worse. Yeah.
even if she could just like improve that to some degree, he would become like much more powerful immediately, because he would be
Yeah, he wouldn't be
able
holding
to
back like he
press.
is.
Yeah, he'd be able to like actually use his thing. And part of the reason I think this is because we do see from his perspective, and he does like in like a way future thing. He doesn't use his power during the chapter, but he like thinks about using his power, and he never thinks about like, oh, this will be the worst for me. Like he just sort of thinks about using it, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. 2 + 4 × 5 says June 12th was when S9 left Brockton Bay. June 16th was Yamada interlude. Sir Carol interlude was between 12th and 16th. And June 20th was mayoral debate
20th.
explosion. Okay.
Are we sure? It's saying on the timeline I'm seeing here, the mayoral debate was the 19th, and the subsequent events that are about to all unfold on the next day, which I almost spoiled because I
Hmm.
almost just like broke thing. According to the
According to the
Yamada interlude.
Yamada
Oh,
interlude.
crazy. Huh.
Huh.
All right, so I will believe the Yamada interlude. So
Is a trustworthy folk.
yeah. Then yeah, I don't know. It's a similar timeline either way. It's like
Yeah.
a week ish.
So the other cell block leaders and their respective lieutenants start to arrive. There's like 12 cell blocks who have leaders. So presumably there's just like anarchy in the other ones. I don't know what's going on there. But so that means there's 11 leaders and then 11 lieutenants coming. So the leader who gave him Amy upon both of their requests, Lustrum is irritated that she has not received payment for giving him to her to him. Namely, her healing would have been ideal. Marquis tells her that Amy isn't healing right now,
Give me some of that healing.
and only smiles and deflects when the other cell block leaders pipe in irritated. He tells them that he'll hear everybody's terms and offers over the next several weeks before they make any decisions. And the leaders assume he's withholding her power from them, like intentionally. Obviously, he's just like covering for her right now. 2 + 4 × 5 says, did Glastic Wenye bring a lieutenant with her? I don't know. She probably brought somebody.
I think she did.
Mm.
If she did, I don't think it says so.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Glastic Wenye is one of them fake teens. So she looks like or I guess a tween. She looks like a 12-year-old, but she's like one of the people who's been here the longest. So she's clearly older than that. She like intimidatingly addresses him with irrelevant threats. He's like, "You'll pay for your arrogance in 300 years when the fairies wake up." Da, 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 da. And he's like, "All right, Glastic Araignée." So she's like obviously one of the like she's got her own lore for the powers rather than like referring to what other people call them. I mean, like I know it's like when there's people who come in and they like think that it's like a spiritual or like a magical thing.
Like
It's like
Mirrodin.
obviously it's not that different than what you're saying. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But she just like calls the powers fairies, which are the agents, right? So it's a similar thing. And it's like based what she believes is like based in real fairy lore, like that they're um like some people believe that you have a fairy like you would have a guardian angel, kind of like it's connected to you in your soul and stuff, and it guides you, and that is like really similar to how the powers work and stuff. So I don't know, it kind of makes sense. But Glastic Wenye said she'll not bargain with him about this, and he accepts her rejection. But then she clarifies that she means that she's only going to deal with Amy as an equal, which is like very surprising to
Pretty
Marquis and a little
suspicious.
scary because Glastic Wenye is incredibly powerful, like one of the most powerful capes probably ever.
Definitely.
Sigma says, I'm surprised we don't see a whole bunch of weirdos who think powers come from God. Honestly, though, we need more of that.
They don't deal with it as directly, but I'm pretty sure that is like the Christian teams that is what they believe.
Well, it just seems like the fallen are Christians, right? Like they're not.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say. They're Christians, but they like and they are like really enmeshed in like the whole powers and everything, but they like don't think that it comes from God. I think that it would make more sense if that was the claim. But I guess you can't, it's like difficult to claim because so many people who are not followers are getting powers.
Who have whatever your opposite alignment is, which is
Yeah.
part of what makes
So
it
you
so
would have
difficult for the
to,
fallen, I think, in terms of like a rational argument. Like obviously they don't need that,
yeah.
but it's like
I think you would have to believe that the other people are getting their powers from the devil. Like, I think that would be the most easy to like
well, then the
rationalize is
scariest
that,
thing is what if we're all getting our powers from the devil? Then
oh
I
my
was working with the
gosh,
devil too. Even though my name was
girl.
Halo, I was wearing a halo of Lucifer.
Oh, it's terrible. Um, let's see. Vale said, I'm curious if you all listen to other worm podcasts as well when they happen. Yes, sometimes.
I
I've
mean,
only listened
I've
to
listened to
We've Got
all
Worm.
of We've Got Worm. I've listened to several read-throughs, but all of the ones that I started, their coverage ended before the point that we've got to. So, oh, except for Decomposing Worm also covers the whole book, but not Ward. So they did successfully complete a podcast about Worm. But as far as I have seen, those are the only two that have gotten to this point or further.
Hmm.
There's actually, I've seen individual videos that I've watched of people talking about the whole thing, but almost every time that someone did that, it was like 1 to 2 hours, and their coverage of the book was super broad, and most of the
It's like a
time,
full review kind of thing.
yeah, and most of the time they were coming at it from like, this is a book you should read, and here's like a certain amount
Hmm.
about it without
Yeah.
trying to spoil too much. But like, they weren't, very few times were people like analyzing it, and when they were, they had read the book once, typically, like in these videos that I've seen that I'm describing. So I would be
Hmm.
um uh uh I'd be excited to listen to more, I guess. I just haven't seen any that are even as far as we are, so.
Mm-hmm. 2 plus 4 times 5 says I first got into Worm in late March 2021, so I'm pretty new, but I follow at least two other ongoing Worm podcasts. Yeah, if you want to send the links or whatever, I'm sure we'll check them
Yeah,
out.
you can put
And
those
then
in the Discord for us for sure.
Vale says decomposing, and we've got finished. I just saw another one that started to believe it will finish. I link it. Yeah, go ahead and link it. They do a really cool thing where they set up a screen version after the discussion. And then 2 plus 4 times 5 had said Mirrodin isn't magic. He's just a normal wizard looking guy with a wooden staff that he uses to draw glowing runes in the air in order to create a variety of different powerful effects. Um, and then Greg said, I'm assuming about Christians and or the fallen. You say that, but they've already happily rationalized away bad things happening to good people or vice versa. Yeah, it's just like a more, I don't know, because when they're talking about, I feel like generally when you're talking about bad things happening to good people or good things happening to bad people, it's like that's the path that this needs to take. Or often I think that when you're talking about good things happening to bad people, it's like it kind of you're not really, they're not, nobody's really saying that it's because they're like conferring with demons or conferring with Lucifer, but I feel like it's heavily implied that like they're doing bad things and they're being rewarded by like evil entities, and that in the long run they'll be like punished for it, obviously.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
I've been sort of poring over this portion with Glastigwenye. I think they mostly don't mention the lieutenants. So even if she has one, I don't think it would have
yeah, they
said.
really don't talk about any of the extra people.
But based on vibes,
Two
I
plus
don't think
four.
she'd bring one.
Yeah, 2 plus 4 times 5 said I first found this podcast when YouTube for Worm podcasts and sorted by recent uploads. Yeah, that's what I do when I have hyperfixations too. I'm like, I don't want what's most popular. I want the newest and the greatest. I want to be like on the upswing of different creators and stuff. But anyways, Classic Wenye, she's the fairy queen. I'm probably gonna call her that because I can't stand saying her name. It's
Really?
very difficult for me.
Huh.
Yeah.
I thought you had
It's
it down.
more. I mean, I am making the sounds in an order, but it's not. It's not like feasible to me.
Mm-mm.
But she reaches out to Amy, who accepts her hand and gives her a curtsy, which is so cute. And then she Glastigwenye leaves the cell block, and another leader is prompted to accept Amy, like obviously based off of Glastigwenye's assessment of her. Like we said, she's very, very powerful. People respect her, even though she has like these magical fantasies about their powers and stuff. Um, Phil said, I posted a phonetically accurate version of her name on Discord. I'm sure it will help. Yeah. Um, So Amy's like staring off into the distance when they're asking her if she can heal some toothaches in their block, and she agrees that she could, quote unquote, theoretically heal them. Okay, Amy. Like really unhelpful.
I like how she does that because, and then Marcus is like, "This is
Theoretically.
perfect."
So a leader, one of the other cell block leaders' teacher does not take kindly to this. He feels like they're cutting into his block's business. Based off of his thing, I can only assume it's like Tinker made drug, like pain medication or drugs, or maybe they like have their own dentistry that goes on.
There's like a tinker who
But
does dentist stuff, I think, in
yeah,
teacher's
but
zone.
Marquis reminds him that capitalism is a great way to prevent monopolies. So Amy is super off topic and asks, she's like, I'll heal your toothaches, but only if you tell me why we can't escape the bird cage. Which, like, and Marquis is obviously like, oh my god. And I'm like, oh my god. And William's like, oh my god.
Well, I mean, okay,
But it's like too late.
beyond like the it's like
So stupid.
she had clearly understood Marquis before and been like, yeah, I shouldn't tip my hand. This is a pretty big fucking hand tip that you're an idiot. I mean, also,
It's
like,
just
she's so dumb that she, like, needed to go in, talk to them, touch Glass de Guenye, and then she's like, oh shit, now I know what's happening. Like, it's
and
like
it's
Fry
fine.
yelling, now I get it.
Like I get that she like touched Glastic Wenye and then it like she was impassioned with the knowledge that she just gained because that is what happened.
I
Is
know,
that
but it just,
she she could feel like what was going on with Glastic Wenye, and Glastic Wenye has like a direct like a much more direct link to the source of the powers than everybody else does.
I
But
know. But it's
oh
just
my
like,
god.
fucking Amy,
It's
bro.
like
This whole
it's
story.
so it's so bad. It was it's so embarrassing that she did that. Like she could have waited literally like the meeting's like an hour. She could have waited 50 more minutes and then been like, "Hey, can you tell me like what's going on here?" And I'm sure Marquis knows, like they all know, right? We all know. They've talked about this before. I don't know. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Amy does something stupid, but it's not out of character, so whatever. So, one of the cell block leaders, lab rat, starts to pipe in, but then teacher is like, "You're wrong," and then he explains it, and we're not going to talk about it right here because it is irrelevant. um, but Amy accepts the answer, and by consequence, silently agrees to healing teacher's cell block, and the discussions can finally properly begin negotiating out her power now that she's actually agreed to one of them. So at least that part worked out. Um, so after the meeting, it turns out the reason Amy's so distracted and asking stupid ass questions in like a really dangerous situation was because of what she saw when she touched Plastic Winnie's hand. So she could feel we'll just give like a short overview of her power. um I don't know, it's like she like steals, she like steals parahuman souls or whatever when they're dying, okay, and then she like can store them and then pull like up to 3 of them out at a time
I'm
and like have them with her.
100% sure. I think that she can go up to someone who's alive and use her power
Yeah,
on them,
she can just
and
take
that
it.
will
Yeah.
kill them. I'm not
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not 100% sure that it kills them right away, but I think it does.
I mean, he does say that. I mean, maybe it doesn't kill them right away, but I'm sure it'll kill them pretty quickly. So that's her thing. She's very, very dangerous. That's why everyone's so scared of her, because she can literally just like suck all their souls out of their bodies and take them for herself,
I think
and
she
then they'll
does
be
need to
dead.
make contact more or less. She needs to be in close.
Yeah,
Although with the amount of proximity they were in that scene, you know.
yeah. And she did touch Amy. But so when she touched her hand, she could feel what was going on there. So she could feel her drawing and giving energy to 3 invisible figures by her, basically explaining why like Glastic Wenye quote unquote sees things. Like she's not just seeing things; it's like actually a part of her power. Um, and
And
Marquis,
there are other people who have like altered vision as part of their power. We'll see that later in the story.
yeah. So yeah, Marquis just explains that she like collects the souls of parahumans and she summons them and she can use some number of them at a time. And Amy tells him that they're not in fact fairies or souls or psychic images like everybody thinks. And that she thinks she saw like basically the missing piece to part of how they understand powers. So that's like why she's been so distracted because it's so scary. And she's like, if I had realized sooner, I wouldn't have brought myself to the birdcage, I guess. And Marquis expertly changes the topic to ask her why she's here because they haven't talked in the entire week that she's gotten here. Um, so Amy just tells him she used her power on her sister and unmade her as a result of her love. Pretty good explanation, honestly. Very like usually when Amy explains things, it's very winding. Um,
She's not very
it
good at
kind of
staying
goes,
on topic because
yeah,
if she stays on topic for too long, she might be in trouble with herself and everybody else.
yeah. Yeah. She like astutely tells him who she did it to, what she did, and why, which is like very like I guess she's just been thinking about this a lot. So good for her, I guess.
She usually dissembles
Um
a lot more.
yeah. So after some silence, she says although she's glad that he's here, Victoria was her family, not Marquis. And he's like that like hurts his feelings really badly, but he hides it because it's like it's not really important right now. He's just trying to like get her to open up and stuff. Um and Amy explains how she feels like she's betraying Victoria by even thinking about anything other than her, which is clearly like why she's been like so like silent and closed off, is that she hasn't been able to think about anything else until something really stark happened. And then I pulled a quote here.
Mm-hmm. I suspect the pain won't stop or heal as quickly as you're thinking it will. It hasn't been that long, after all. Except, if it stops at all, if I ever forget, then I've subtracted something from the big picture. It's not that she was perfect, but
So Marquis has a great idea to get Amy out of her funk. Let's go dye our hair. No, 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 that's not right. Let's go get stick and pokes. This is just like such a like a fucking breakup reaction to
bad
have.
punk, sassy punk.
Um, it's like there's there's nothing else really they can do here. So I
New
guess it was
tattoo,
good
new
advice.
me.
But yeah, new tattoo, new me. Let's move on. Thank you. Hashtag thank you next. So he takes Amy to a tattoo artist Tinker and he tells her to get something symbolic rather than like Victoria's face. And Amy's like, I couldn't remember her face when it counted. And Marcus just like doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Um, so to help her solve her other problem, he lets her know that they can just talk to Dragon's surveillance cameras and that somebody will maybe listen to them. And Amy seems pretty happy with both these solutions. Like he kind of like does exactly what needs to be done here. I don't know if it was a good idea to have Amy get a tattoo of Victoria, but I also don't know if it was a bad idea. Like, I think most people would be fine with something like this, but Amy's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she sits down to get her sick new tat. So later, Amy prays to Dragon's surveillance cameras as advised. The house program transcribes the message as it always does. And it gets like hella flagged in their tracking programs. So the system routes the message to Dragon's satellite, but before it can reach it, it intercepted, oh my gosh, the Sky Endbringer, the Sea Merg, while flying above the Earth as she typically does, changed her course specifically to get in the fucking way. Because that's crazy, right?
Well,
So
we obviously, I didn't, I feel like I didn't pick it up correctly the first time, but what I should have gleaned from this scene, because it's obvious, is that the point of this is to let the audience know that this was actually very important information.
yeah,
And like, obviously we have the dramatic irony of knowing something that was not properly sent forth to the
yeah,
recipient of the
and we don't
message.
even like get the full picture from Amy. Like seemingly she like says, "I think I know what's gonna happen in 300 years when the quote unquote fairies wake up," and like that's and like more information on like how the actual like passengers or agents work and stuff. Um, but like we don't even hear the details. Like she just says that she knows them, and then she like says them to the camera, but we don't even get to like hear the I would love to know exactly what she said to the cameras, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
um but so the Seamerg like puts her big ass bod in the middle of the transmission, like when it's being sent there or sent back. And so it scrambles the message and it gets archived with the rest of the bullshit that's happened in the birdcage that's been pretty uneventful. So that's what happens.
And
That's what happens when
we
you
know that
pray.
she's super distracted because she, Dragon, I mean,
Yeah.
because she is going into that fight, or they're going between fights, in their pursuit of the Slaughterhouse Nine, and
Yeah.
the S9 are on their way to
And
Boston.
like on the like going in between the flights, they've also been dealing with discovering something like about Dragon's trigger event or whatever. So it's like they're like both distracted by their work but also personally. And so yeah, no one will ever see it again. That's too bad. Wish we knew what Amy had said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that part in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when the younger of the two boys talks to Aslan, and we never get to hear what was said between them. You know,
Um
books.
yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I remember that being called out specifically when I was a kid as like,
Yeah.
uh the teacher who was having us read the book, and I agree with
Uh-huh.
this, thought that that part was improved by us not learning what was said exactly. And that
Yes, yes.
it was an example that he had of the ambiguity of literary scene, allowing it to sort of be uplifted by a given reader, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2+4 × 5 says, when I read this chapter, my first read through, by this point I was already sobbing, but the Seamark intervening is what truly broke me. I slammed my hands down on my desk and dropped my forehead down onto them. Just freaking cried for several minutes because it is all so unfair. Listen, the Seamark is the god of fairness, okay? She is karma. She had to get back at Amy for what she did to Victoria. Yeah, it is like frustrating. I do feel like it would be more frustrating if we had heard the information. Because like I mean like generally know the information after reading the book, but like it is like, oh no. It is
Yeah.
like some oh no stuff. It is some really big stuff. I was thinking we should just do our characters and power, knowledge, and world building now because I don't think we'll have a ton to say after the second chapter.
Yeah. You're right.
Um,
We should split it up when it's like these. They're split chapters.
do we want to do powers, knowledge, and world building while we're already talking about it?
Yeah.
Everything with the Seamerg and stuff.
Yeah,
The
let's just
Seamerg,
go right in it.
I don't fucking know what's going on with her still because I haven't gotten to a point where anyone's told me. But obviously, she's the Endbringers are more intentional than we might have before thought. That's what like I got out of this upon my first read. It was like, oh, like I know that that they are like going places and like causing the most chaos as possible, and they often seem to be searching for something. But those things they were searching for often seemed like they were just trying to find things that would cause the most chaos and destruction. Um, and like this is like a lot more intentional. Like this is targeted. She has to have like a really good understanding of the consequences of she like both has to have a really good understanding, the Seamerg, I mean, of what is going on in the grand scheme of thing with the grand scheme of things with powers, and like the motivation to prevent people from understanding it. It's very, very strange.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess I don't want to get like all the way down the rabbit hole on the Seamerg, but she is able to like um she has a lot of knowledge about like external stuff and like what will cause what, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
that's the kind of like power set she has. Um as well as like, you know, some basics to help her get along in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like flying around really fast and shit. You know, just the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Just like the basics, being like made of
being
like
ultra dense.
a massive onion layers. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 plus 4 times 5 says well, didn't notice if we read it, but because it was also unfair, it was said. And then I had been super curious about the Seamerg, and then the first time she showed up was explicitly just to completely screw over one of the major plot mysteries
Yeah.
of the setting. Um, yeah, to block the information. Um,
Yeah.
the
She's
only
a
thing
real
that we know
bitch.
about the Seamerg before this is that the Seamerg killed Mannequin's family, and he lost his mind after uh, he was at that Endbringer event. And then we also know that Taylor said in her own brain monologue, win every battle, lose the war, about the Seamerg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
She
yeah.
she's something else for sure. Um, so
Oh, also, I wanted
we
to
kind
ask
of
before I forget 2 plus 4 times 5. Have you read all of Ward? I feel like you were reading it when we first started, but it's been so long since we first started that I also just don't remember who exactly was where. I know Vale's read it. Okay, and you've read it too.
uh
Okay.
two
Um.
plus four times five says also Tattletale said the Seamerg is suspected to be the only true telepath in the setting, and then
Oh yeah.
to be fair, Taylor
That's what
was
Tattletale says,
exaggerating.
which is funny because
Yeah.
like that's just, in my opinion, that's just wrong.
And then to be fair, Taylor was exaggerating about winning every battle to begin with. I finished it just about 1 year ago, early January 2023. That makes sense. So like when we started uh the stream or whatever, you hadn't
No. That
finished it yet.
yeah. So that's like a year ago, about a half the way back on the stream. So
Yeah.
a year ago we would have been doing, I would guess, like arc 8 or 9. I'm not exactly sure. Because I actually erased the old dates as the schedule goes so that I can just look at whatever is current. But
Mm-hmm.
um,
Um,
yeah.
so I feel like that's all I have to say about the Seaberg. As far as the powers go, we get like more context into what the powers are. Amy says they are not souls and they are not, what does she call them? Psychic images, which is what like the sciencey people around them seem to think. is happening. Like they think that the powers Glastic Wenye is getting is just a psychic image. And it's neither of those things. Okay, so that's interesting. Something something bigger than that. She basically says that they are sentient, I guess in like a bigger and more direct way than a psychic image is, like in the way that they would just kind of be reflecting the person. These themselves are like cognizant sentient beings, even though they're like under Glastic Wenye's control and everything, and they're kind of like not full figures or something.
Well, also I think the way she's saying it is and this is in response to Marquis saying that teacher says they're psychic images, etc.
Mhm.
She says they're not fairies or souls or psychic images. Our powers aren't part of our bodies exactly. So this is when she reframes to the powers, not just the shadows.
Mhm.
Um, I would be able to alter them or take them away if they were. What I saw when I touched Glastigüenye, I feel like I got clued into a missing piece of the puzzle. They're sentient. So
Mhm.
she's saying the powers themselves are sentient.
Yeah, yeah, which was something that even though like the common nomenclatures, like the passengers and the agents do imply that they're sentient,
I
to some
still,
degree.
I was, so the way that Bonesaw had framed it previously is that like the passenger is dead, da 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 da, but
Yeah.
that is just I mean, there may be some way that that is technically true or something, but I think it's just throws us
They're
off.
like
So
kind of dead. Like I feel like they're like put like the little like actual physical piece that is put in there is dead, like the shard or whatever. I think that like maybe that's what she's referring to. Like that part of it is dead, but like the rest of it is like I guess like living inside of them. So
hmm. Well,
like
there
I
may
feel
be
like the
some
shard is
part
just for
that is.
transmission.
Well, no, because the shard is the thing itself. So
Okay. Um 2 plus 4 times 5 said. I remember skipping part of one of the streams in Arc 9-ish because you said, oh yeah, and Word, this character, and I skipped ahead because I was only 3/4 of the way through at the time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you know those
Spoilies.
somewhat spoilies.
Those
Um,
damn spoilies. It's hard to keep them in.
well, the thing is, um, I don't want to have to fully talk around everything. You know what I mean? And I'm the type of
Mhm.
person who, like, I don't think the kind of spoilers that I give on this stream are the kind that negatively impact someone's um read of these books. I think that they're the
Mhm.
kind of like, what is that referring to? That sounds cool. Kind of things that
Mhm.
like get me into these kinds of things to like draw me onward, I guess. Cause like I I feel like I've had stuff. I mean, you heard some major spoilers about Worm, and I don't have anything like that, but I feel like I have stuff where I hear like a medium level or high level spoiler about something, and that is the thing that makes me go, okay, I want to play this game, read this book, watch this show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm very like little affected by spoilers in general because like I'm not like there's
I don't like to spoil a
spoilers.
good joke because the first time a joke hits you, like that will imprint the way you think of that joke most of the time. You know?
Yeah. I feel like most there's spoilers that are just telling you things that you won't know till the future, and that could add some dramatic irony or this or that. And then there's like some pieces of media. That's the thing is that if there were like more twists in Worm, then the spoilers would be more like important to hold close to the chest. But there's not like there's as many like twists and turns as there are. There's not very many times where something is told to you and then it completely rewrites everything that you know, which does happen in like which are the spoilers that like people don't that you wouldn't want to know. Like what's an example? Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
this is the spoilers for the first Hunger Games because, I mean, just skip ahead by like a minute if you don't want spoilers for the Hunger Games. Three, two, one. I think it would actually negatively impact my reading first time of the Hunger Games had I known that PETA lives. And like obviously by just
Yeah.
having seen a trailer for Catching Fire, you automatically know that. But I actually think
Yeah.
I did get a really good, like, that's a dramatic, like, kind of thriller-y action book in a way. And I
Yeah.
think that it worked for me thinking that one of them would die because it had been pretty brutal up to the end. So I
Yeah,
didn't really
it's been
expect both of
set,
them to
and it's
live.
been like very like set up this whole time, and there's no reason to think because like no other rules have really been broken by the like in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason to think that this could change in any way. And similarly with the second book, the kind of spoilers I was talking about, like a twist. In the second book, there's the twist that the people her other allies have been conspiring to get them out of the arena, um and that like rewrites like a bunch of the context that we have about those characters and that like Katniss has about the situation she's been in this whole time. So like
Mm-hmm.
that would be like an unfortunate spoiler to tell somebody
But
while they're reading
the thing
Catching
is,
Fire.
like, legitimately for that one, I thought that so I like Katniss as a dumb protagonist. So me calling her a dumb protagonist is not a knock on the book. This is me saying it's well written.
Hmm.
I like her as a dumb protagonist because there's lots of dramatic irony because she can't see through things that clever readers will see through. So it makes
Hmm.
it feel like you're ahead of the game most of the time when you're reading through. Like I knew
Hmm.
that Plutarch was working for the rebels. Like that was fucking obvious. I knew that that's what he
Hmm.
was trying to tell her. He was like beating her over the head with the message and she didn't get it. Uh
Yeah.
which makes it more believable that she can't figure out that the other tributes are like doing the same thing because they're all wearing the same like rebellion symbol that he shows to only her and like turns off
Hmm.
and that Haymitch gives them all these rebellion symbols and crap and they're all wearing the same thing as she is and it's like
Yeah.
thematically in line with what she represents like
Hmm.
to the people in the public eye.
Let's catch up on the chat.
Yeah.
Vil said, I'm able to compartmentalize spoilers, set aside in the mind until it becomes something I should know. Yeah, that's what I had to do with the really bad one.
Yeah.
Um, what
And it's
I'm
all
getting
because you
at
wanted
is
to see
that
memes.
what I'm getting is that joke punchline spoilers are more dangerous than important plot spoilers. LOL. Um, Soylent Green in is a people spoiler versus Voldemort is returning spoiler. Um, in middle school literature class, shortly after the third Hunger Games book came out, we were assigned the first Hunger Games book to read, or the second or third, but I had already read the entire trilogy, so I had to read Fahrenheit 451. That's like that's like such a funny like alternative book because there's like so many other like you could have read any of the other like YA dystopians that were coming out at the time,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
instead it's like let's go with a classic.
Yeah.
um
Um. Huh. I'm just trying to think if there's like actual thematic resonance between Fahrenheit 451 and the Hunger Games, and like,
I mean they're both dystopian. That was
yeah,
probably what the teacher was thinking,
probably
but
the way that
they're
the
like
control is
written
coming
really
down from the
differently.
government, and like, yeah, the actual literary qualities of the two works don't really overlap.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both in
Um
English.
they're both yeah, they are both English. Do they both take place in America too, maybe?
Yeah, they do.
Um,
You're right.
I wanted to let's review what teacher had to say about this stupid ass thing about where they are and stuff. And then we can talk about like the 4 relevant cell block leaders that we met this chapter.
2 plus 4 times 5
And here's the
says
thing.
I didn't understand
Go ahead.
Fahrenheit 451 enough to say how they're similar.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
grade did you say this was to read it?
Well, middle school, so it has to have been uh
Like
pre
before.
ninth grade, because doesn't middle school
Yeah.
denote that it's the type of school that's a 6, 7, 8, and junior high is the type that's 7, 8, 9.
I'm not sure. I mean, I use junior high and middle school interchangeably personally.
Oh, I usually use 1 to denote which grades are in it.
But like I went to a middle school that was 6 and 7, and then I went to a 6, 7, 8, and then I also went to a middle school that was just 7 and 8. And then like the middle school that all my friends went to was a middle school that was 7, 8, 9. So I think you can really do any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. So Amy asks her stupid ass question, which is like, I guess she's asking because she's like, I need to get this information out. But like, I don't know. Okay. So Lab Rat tells her that the reason they can't leave is because they're like in a hollowed out mountain with a vacuum and containment foam, and then teacher cuts him off. And when teacher said this, when I read this the first time, I just like didn't believe him. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to believe him. It like sounded conspiratorial in a way that I don't
The
know
shrink
why
thing?
I trusted Lab Rat immediately over teacher in this scenario.
Yeah,
even though they had both only said one line.
Me too. I really just there's
just
something about teacher that is like, it's not just that he's untrustworthy, it's also that he seems like the kind of person who's only ever 80% right about anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I feel like. So here's what he has to say about it. This is why we can't leave, is because size warping technology. The device might be no bigger than a football, and that's hidden somewhere in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. The warping apparatus would be bigger, and there's nothing saying it's anywhere close to the actual prison. Reason we can't break out is because we're in a prison no bigger than your fist. And if all of this is only this small, teacher held up a fist, then tapped it against the nearest table. How far are you going to have to dig or teleport to get through a surface this thick, or through something as thick as that wall over there, or 100 feet of lead with gallons of containment foam on the outside? Okay, Amelia said. Yeah, I just like didn't believe him. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we just never learn enough to.
Yeah, we like never like hear from Dragon exactly how it works, and she's the only person I would trust to tell me how it works,
But
because
like, I
everybody
almost
else
feel
has just
like
been like, it's just in a vacuum, and that seems like enough explanation.
the reason I think Lab Rat's more likely to be right, it's a hollowed out mountain vacuum containment foam. And then, like, I also think that she mentions at one point that she does have like in some dragon chapter that she had like kind of drones that are in there too. But like
Yeah.
the reason I think that makes more sense is that size warping technology and powers interact with other powers, and we never see a powers interaction that, like, no one ever brings up the idea that you can't use X type of power inside that. That's never mentioned.
Yeah. I feel like it's just what Bakuda and okay, that's the other thing, is Bakuda has also already explained it. So like when Bakuda explains it, and then Labrat comes in and explains it, and then teacher's like, actually it's this other thing. It's like maybe there's some like size warping technology involved, but I don't think that all of them are itty bitty. I just can't think that. It's just too much for me. I can't.
You know what I would believe that would make the most sense is that
Huh.
if there was a small vacuum around the prison, but then that vacuum itself was like ultra expanded by size warping technology, so it would be like huge on the inside, vacuum only, but then it doesn't have to take up that much space, and they only had to hollow out a little bit outside the prison, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. That could be it.
Of
And
course.
yeah.
You see what Greg
Um,
said?
yeah, funny, I shrunk the criminals.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, as far as these characters go, those were most of the relevant ones. Teacher, he's some guy, okay? He's a cell block leader. His name
He's
is
a real
Teacher.
dipshit. I like can't
He looks and
pretend
he
that
looks
I
like a
don't hate
normie.
him. Like he's just such an asshole.
He looks like a middle school English teacher, which I do think is funny. And I do want more normie ass looking parahumans because I think it's funny. Um, then there is Lab Rat, another tinker. He's a cell block leader. We don't really hear anything from him, but he comes back later. Um, Glastic Wenye is very important, super powerful. Everybody trusts her opinion, or at least like respects her and knows not to fuck with her. Um, was there anyone else? There was the uh
Lustrum.
shoot, what's yeah, Lustrum as well, who is the Dragon had talked about her before. She like puts she like clearly like gives her the women who she wants taken care of. Like she puts them in her cell block and hopes for the best.
Yeah.
She's a
That's a good way to put it.
feminist icon. Um, let's see. And I think that's
A
all we
feminist
care
icon
about.
who got she got tarred by the media machine.
Mm-hmm. She like comes in the conversation and she's like, enough with this male posturing. But it was not male posturing. They were basically like implying that Amy needed to be whored out. But like I'm I'm sure she like hears enough of that in a day that like to her it like doesn't bother her that much,
Mm.
like comparatively. So yeah, there was that. Okay, that's everyone. Lung is also there, but he's like not he's not even Marquis's lieutenant. He's just like some guy.
Yeah.
Um, he doesn't come to the meeting. He's like really unhappy with the situation with Amy. He like is really looking down on Marquis for like keeping her around and making people protect her and stuff.
Mm. Yeah. Um I guess I would want to say we know some of his lieutenants now. There's Spruce and Cinderhands, who we will sort of see as background characters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Spruce,
They're just some guys.
Spruce, I just think of as the Hunter x Hunter character Satotz, which is spelled Satotz. If anyone wants to look up an image of him. He, I believe, is a character based off of the Deku Butler from Zelda Majora's Mask. So just imagine in your mind the Deku Butler, but as a human with no mouth. Anyway.
Bye. 2 + 4 × 5.
Oh.
We'll hear from you later, I'm sure.
Bye. So yeah. Then I don't think there's any other minor characters that we really need to mention. Acid Bath is there. They mentioned some other people, but
there's like a lot of people just like vaguely mentioned, but they are not really relevant, so we don't need to worry about it.
Leaders. I want to see. Do they mention them all in a row at one point? Sorry, talk about Amy.
Yeah. He does list all their names and stuff. Honestly, there's not a lot to say about Amy this chapter. She's a shell of a person. She hasn't been doing anything. She's just been like so like something that's notable is she did ask to go to Marquis's cell block, but then she doesn't obviously like talk to him or anything. And she tells him that he isn't her family, which is a little bit mean, but
She's doing great.
understandable.
She's doing great.
Understandable, seeing as so what's like interesting and sad here is that Marquis is like noticing things that he like remembers about her, but she doesn't remember any of it. So she curtsies to Glastic Wenye, which Marquis knows he's the one who taught her to curtsy, because who the fuck else would have taught her to curtsy? But Amy knows how to curtsy, but she obviously like doesn't remember him teaching her that. So I don't know, just kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's like weird that she doesn't remember him at all. Because she was 6 at the time. But I mean, I've heard, like, to me that's really strange, but like I know a lot of people who say things like that they would not have any memory from that age or like many years later. So
Yeah, I know people who say like up to. I definitely know at least 2 people who have said I can't remember anything before 3rd grade, which to me is
yeah.
mind blowing because I definitely remember things for sure at
Yeah,
4,
absolutely.
maybe
Me
at
too.
3. Yeah.
It's yeah, I have memories. I have many memories from my early threes. Um and I believe some of them from like my late twos, but that's just me, so
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't know that I go
Um
back that far. I remember my first full memory. I was actually meeting Greg and his brothers
mm,
at their house in their daylight basement. Um,
that's cute.
yeah.
I would say, and like maybe I don't know, because like memory is a weird thing, and so it could not be real. But as far as I remember, I my first memory was getting weighed in a bucket. And so I would have had to be I mean they do that to infants, you know. I would have
Mm-hmm.
had to be pretty young for that. And I remember being really irritated.
Yeah, yeah.
Did not want to be in a bucket. I thought I was like an adult as soon as I was born. So I was often very disturbed and confused at the things that were happening to me.
I remember.
Either infants or college. Yeah, that's it. That must have been it.
I was gonna say I remember very much like as a child more so talking to adults like they were my peers than any other kids tried to do, and
Yeah.
I think it got pretty good results overall. Like I think it weirded out a lot of adults, but
Yeah.
what are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
Mine was more just that I couldn't like I didn't know that I couldn't talk, and so I would talk like at people, and then they were clearly not understanding me, or like I didn't think they weren't understanding me. I thought they weren't listening to me, and then I'd get angry and I would throw tantrums. And that was when I was, between the ages of 3 to 6, because I had speech impediments too, so it took me a long time to
Woof.
learn to talk.
I couldn't understand for a long time, like why no one could read my writing, and like I get that it
Yeah,
was bad, but I still like even now I'm kind of like, man, get better.
yeah. That's how
Like you're
because
around
I don't know,
children as
like
a job.
if you're around children as a job, you should be able to read their writing. I That's what I felt like with my talking. I was like, I like once I like learned, because when it was coming out of, like, I couldn't hear the problems at all. I don't know about you, because I think you said you went to speech therapy as well, but like they would tell
Hmm.
me to say something and I would say it and it would sound perfectly fine to me. And so I was like so annoyed. I was like, why aren't you just listening harder?
Yeah, there were definitely times when, like, I think probably objectively I was saying like some weird thing, but like I couldn't tell. There were other things like the main issue I was working on with speech therapy where I could tell it was happening, but like I didn't
Mm,
have any like I clearly wasn't finding a way in my own speech patterns to like compensate for it, I guess.
Yeah. Vale says they have some 1-year-old or before 1-year-old memories. Remember my mom looking at me over the dining room table in the middle of the night because I was crying incessantly and being held by my dad standing next to train tracks behind our house. Yeah, like for me that is like I don't think that any of my memories are before 1 year old, but definitely like infant stage. And so it's like insane to me that some people like they're just like, oh, I can't remember anything before I was 12. It's like, what the fuck do you mean? That was like your entire childhood. How are you functioning? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I must have been 4 when my family met. When I met Greg and his brothers, because
Uh-huh.
like my older brother would have been in third grade at the beginning of the year, so like 8, and so I'm 4 years younger than him, so I would have been like 4. So maybe that's my first full memory, but that's like I remember the car ride there and like going inside and how it was light when
Yeah,
we
like
went
as a
in
whole
and dark when
event
we
and like
came
a
out.
story kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So like that's like a whole thing. Whereas I have memory fragments from what I would say is probably 3. You know.
that makes sense. Yeah. Well, Amy has nothing because she's an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with her.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like there's not a lot to say about her this chapter because she is just not doing anything. Um, I mean,
She's
she is like
wallowing. That's like a common task
she's
for her.
she's wallowing like usual. She does get pulled out of her funk by the event of the chapter, which is um honestly, I don't even know if I would say it's good news because what's she gonna do once she's out of that funk? You
Yeah.
never know. You never know what this girl's gonna do. She does she is getting a tattoo. I kind of just want to go read the description of the tattoo,
Yeah.
even though we're like not supposed to see it yet, but we don't see it for a really long time.
I'm gonna read out the names of all the cell block leaders while you get that ready. So we had
Okay.
Acid Bath, Galvanate, Teacher, Lab Rat, and Gavel from the men's side. Acid Bath we don't see very much of, but he's a real bastard. Galvanate we don't really see that much of, but I think his power is cool, and that's all we see of him, so it kind of works. Um, uh, Teacher, a real bastard. We'll have to deal with him later. Lab Rat, I mean, in some ways he sucks, but we love him. Gavel, we get to see him fight at one point, and it's pretty sweet. That's right. Light spoilers.
Dude,
Lustrum.
it does.
Oh,
I'm irritated because it doesn't even have her tattoo in her fucking wiki bio, so now I need to go find it.
mm-mm. On the ladies' side, we got Lustrum. We've talked about her a bit. We got Black Kaze. We will learn vague details, but never anything concrete about Black Kaze. Glastigüenye, we'll end up talking about her a bunch more later. String Theory, we will see. String Theory and Lab Rat both tinkers. Crane, we get some weird details about, but not too much. Although I think Crane has like, there's one really really good moment as far as I'm concerned that involves Crane. And then the last one is Anjanou, and Anjanou, isn't she just terrible? Uh,
She's fun.
um, Vale says, traumatic experience slash stress can wipe away years of childhood memory other than very specific traumatic ones. Vale says her tattoo clearly says no regrets.
No regrets. I can't even find a description. It's whatever. It's like a stylistic sun and stuff.
It's
So
like a
it's
sun, and she gets
representative.
like a bunch of like red blood on her hands. She has tattoos, like she has full sleeves on both her arms, I think, by the end of her
Yeah,
Stay on the
I
Birdcage.
think it's like a one by like she gets this is just the first one that she's getting,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
like as time goes on, she's going back and getting more. As many people who get tattoos do. So,
Live, laugh, love,
whatever.
spelled exactly like that, written out in that text with no spaces.
Yeah. Live, laugh, love. Um, so good. Well, let's talk about Marquis.
Mm.
He he's a pretty good dad. He does not have like
Main
listen,
quality, good dad.
he does not have any ulterior motives for his love and care towards Amy, which is refreshing to say the least. Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of questionable parenting that we have seen so far, okay? Um and like off and as I did write absentee father, that is mostly a joke. He did not mean to abandon his daughter. He clearly wanted to stay with her and take care of her for the rest of their lives while he was busy being a cool warlord, okay? Um he does like is basically just like says everything perfectly, but that's just kind of a facet of his character. I think he's like very talented at that usually. So when Amy's like starts to come out of his funk, he's like able to just very easily like help complete that process. um like I said, I don't know if it was great advice to have her get a tattoo of her sister, but it did do what he wanted it to do, which
Mm-hmm.
was make her not feel like she has to just sit around and only think about Victoria for the entire rest of her life.
Yeah. It's
Vale said
important
he
that
is
she gets
super
her head in the
supportive.
game now. But yeah, sorry, go on with
Yeah,
Vale.
yeah. He is super supportive, doesn't judge his kids, wants only the best for them, sacrifices to see them and have a better life. Yeah. He also, like you
Bad
said,
dude, good
he
dad.
he he like the reason he's like pushing so hard is like clearly only because of the threat to like her well-being right now that she's in. Like I
He
think that
considers
if
them
it
to
were
both
any
be in
other,
a precarious position.
yeah, I think that if they were in any other situation, that he would have like given her the time and space to try to like overcome this on her own. But like he just needs her to like get it the fuck together, which makes sense. They're in a really dangerous situation. He does say, like, "Oh, I'll give up all my power for you" or whatever, but she like doesn't really believe him, and it's like if he lost like losing his powers and just losing his power, like that would be him getting murdered. Like I feel like she's not very good at like
She doesn't like understand the
recognizing the
consequences in
scope of
parahuman
things.
situations a lot of times. Like
Yeah,
she can't follow the logic of like why Skitter would be a villain but also be good. Like she just like
yeah.
is completely head empty
She's
when
just
it
got
comes to
kind
this
of like
stuff.
simplistic, yeah, she has like simplistic understandings of how the world works. And she can, I mean, it makes sense for her character, like in the sense that when she's thinking about herself, there's always only one decision that she can make because she's like really bad at like understanding the fuller context of the world.
Mm-hmm.
um so this is it's hard to break through to somebody that like you. I like know that you are struggling right now, but what you are doing is having like there's larger consequences going on, and I feel like she is feeling like he's pushing her because he like wants to use her to some degree, which is like obviously like unfair. It's true, but there's like so many other things going on.
Yeah. Vale says
um
several things. After the stuff about Marquis adds, there may be a murder in there somewhere, but it was his job, and Amy's reality is not everyone else's reality. Her power is like that also, very singular in intent, either heal or don't heal. There is no nuance to it, just structure. Well, I think that there's probably a lot of
Well, the
nuance
way
to
she
it,
uses
but
it, yeah.
she's quite bad with her power. And like
Yeah.
to a certain extent you need the right mindset to like match with a power, but I do think that there are people who are particularly bad with their own powers, and she's kind of one of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I don't know, maybe it's intentional because she has like such an OP power. You have to give it to somebody who like puts their own limitations on it, because otherwise she would just like, if Taylor got her power, everyone would have been dead in arc 1. Are you kidding? She would have like unleashed a huge plague to make everybody her like mind slaves. Like you had it had to go to Amy, because who else would have been so stupidly cautious and single-minded with it this whole time?
I can't be evil like my evil dad. I have to just mentally torture myself. I mean,
Yeah, until something horrible happens.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's really going through it. Bill said Taylor would never take that back. I'm not gonna take it back. It's like if Taylor had a gun, like we would not have gotten this story, because Taylor would have just done crazy shit and like killed everybody or died. Um, let's see. What else do I want to say about Marquis? I like Marquis. I like that Marquis. There's a lot in comparison to Taylor. Marquis doesn't need to excuse his actions to himself. It's like he just kind of like has ideas about himself, and he has opinions
I feel like I'm much
about
more like
himself and about the world.
I feel like at this point, my morality scale is a lot more like Marquis-y than it would ever be like Taylor-y. Not that
Yeah.
that's really where me and Taylor ever like super overlapped, because she's much more of a uptight person. But I I just feel like the way he operates in terms of like, yeah, I mean, I kind of know what's good and bad, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and you gotta live your
Yeah.
life. You just gotta
Yeah,
live
it's
your
like
life.
it's like so different from like Taylor and a lot of the other characters, where he can just like he like just can have an idea of something, and that's like just fine. It's good enough as is. Like he's like, I don't want to kill women and children. Does he ever give any explanation of that? No. He just thinks that it's wrong and he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like refreshing in
He also,
comparison
yeah,
to
he
like,
doesn't need to jump through any hoops to
he
convince
doesn't need to
himself
do
of
mental
things.
gymnastics to defend what he feels naturally. And he's just like, I just love Amy because I love Amy and she's my daughter. He doesn't need to be like, he doesn't have like this complicated relationship with her that like a lot of the other characters would have, where they would be like going through hoops to try to figure out like why they care about her, or like how what they should do about their relationship, or this and that. Like he's just like, yeah, I'm her dad, so I'm gonna take care of her. It's, it's just it's sometimes a like a nice simple-minded morality is a nice touch.
Yeah, yeah. It is kind of refreshing after Taylor just because he's doing his version of stressing, but his version of stressing compared to her version of stressing,
It's so relaxed.
yeah,
He's literally like, he's like, man, this is getting really stressful because me and my daughter are both gonna get like brutally murdered or like taken as slaves, basically. But that's like the extent of the thought process.
yeah,
um, like obviously he like works really hard to maintain things, but it just feels so much less stressful than being in Taylor's head comparatively.
yeah. Taylor's worried about more individual things though, whereas he, I would say, has a small, given his place in the world, he has an incredibly
Hmm.
small scope of responsibilities.
Yeah, like think about this. Like Marquis Marquis can just go and tell a lie because he wants to. If Taylor had fucking told a lie, that would have been a whole ass character arc about, oh my gosh, I lied again. I can't believe I lied again. Oh, this is so stressful and terrible. And then it would have gotten to the next scene, and then she would have had to hide her emotions from her face like Marquis did, and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I had to keep my emotions inside. Why am I such a baby?" Um, and like obviously some of that just comes with like age and maturity because that's like it's like so teenagery of her to like have those kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
Vil said, "She's an aspiring hero. Stop." The best part of the chapter is he can finally have the tea parties he's always dreamed of. Oh my god, true. Hold up, can you name a single time Taylor didn't lie? Isn't that already the whole character arc?
Yeah, but from her
Yeah, but every
perspective,
time she
it's
does it,
just
she
like,
gets really upset.
yeah.
Literally, like even in this, we'll start 16.11 in a second. Even in this chapter, she lies and then she thinks about it. She's like, she lies through the bugs, and then she's like, "Good thing they can't hear my lying voice through the bugs." And it's like, wait a minute, Taylor. How easy was it for strangers to tell that you were lying before?
Yeah.
Because for the most part, I don't think strangers can usually tell if you're lying. What are you talking about? That is her
Yeah. I
journey to
mean,
finally be okay with telling lies. That's like what I'm hoping that she comes to, because I like literally every time she tells a lie, I'm like, can we just get over it?
yeah, it's one of the things where I obviously understand from a character standpoint where she's coming from, but it is a big disconnect from where she is and where I like have ever been. It's like she'll
Yeah,
be telling
yeah.
these lies that are like lies of extreme utility, and like, what are you gonna just tell him you're Skitter or whatever? Um,
Mm.
like, come on.
And and here's like where I'm at with lying is like with like the whole Skinner thing, I'd like make the decision once. But it's like Taylor makes the decision like every single time, and then she feels guilty about it every single time. And that's crazy to me. Like you make the decision once, and then if you need to reconsider it, that's a second decision. But she's not in states where she's reconsidering it. She's in a state where she has to uphold it, and then she's like all stressed about it.
Yeah. Okay, so
Um,
Vale's saying,
Bill,
oh yeah, you go on.
Bill, hold on, I read the bottom one first. Let me read the top one. Can you imagine if her fine-grained insect control caused the bugs to move about shiftily while she lies? The entire swarm suddenly looks up and to the right, unable to make eye contact.
Yeah.
They start fidgeting and biting their nails. It's so awkward.
Yeah, all these bugs biting all their nails, and it starts getting
Dude,
really loud and chirpy.
it's like zero, 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 zero.
Yeah.
They're like sweating.
Um, do you have anything more to say in either? I did want to hopping back to the world building part of knowledge, powers, knowledge, and world building. I wanted to say like seeing the prison in like a more real way, because like we see it very briefly in the Bakuda
True, true,
lung
true, true.
canary thing. Um, but like we see it for realsies here, and they talk about like the power structure there. Like we saw it from Dragon's perspective too, but she didn't think there are 12 cell blocks that have like block leaders, and then there are like 6 additional ones where they can do business that aren't like, she didn't think of it like that stuff. She just thought a
Yeah,
few things like, oh, I'm putting this person here because they'll be safer with Lustrum or whatever, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think of that because like I've seen it in this chapter before. But yeah, it is like cool to see the cell block and everything and see how like strangely like calm it is often.
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's like obviously murders and stuff are gonna happen, but probably most of them happen when new people are put into the cell blocks, like
Yeah, and I
with
think there's a
what
lot of
happened
lying
between
in
Bakula
wait.
and Lung.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because like they didn't want to fight long, like they generally don't want to fight new prisoners because if like if they're in the birdcage in the first place, they
They're evil.
probably have well no, they probably have a powerful power of some kind. Like they
Hmm.
were considered to be someone who couldn't be held in a conventional facility.
Hmm.
So, because I mean like
We also get to see all the nice things Dragon does for them, like sending them the hottest new romance books.
yeah, I thought it would be good for
Um,
them to have a story about a sexy ghost.
yeah. Oh, also, just like a little tiny thing. Marquis says that they like work hard to remain the only cell block with a full working TV set, which I guess means that every time somebody else gets a full working set, they go and break it, which is so rude.
No, 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 no. That's not what it is. It's just that he keeps it working rather than all the other ones which have
I don't
busted
know.
sets.
I think that, I think that he is doing things to sabotage other cell blocks.
I love that that's where your mind takes that.
I just think like because what is he gonna say when he's pitching himself to the newcomers and they say what it's like on The Voice where they come in and they do a performance and then they're like I want you to join my cell block and then they're like trying to tell them why he always says we're the one with the only working TVs but that's not gonna fucking fly if somebody else has working a working TV set. I'm just saying.
It also vaguely doesn't make sense because, like, you would think that one of the other areas with a tinker would be able to keep him running, but maybe the parts got wrecked.
Well, teacher's doing some sus stuff with his
Well,
TVs,
that's why I
so
didn't
I
bring
think
him
maybe
up.
that's why
But
his
like
aren't
Lab
working.
Rat, well, maybe he wanted to build other stuff.
Yeah.
I guess it's like
I
a
think I
problem
think
even to have a
the
tinker.
Tinkers are probably fucking with their TVs a lot, so they don't have working ones.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Um,
Do we want to read the next chapter? That's
ye-
it. I thought it was a great interlude.
it is great. It is great. I will read the next chapter. Yeah, 16.11. Vale says Lung's primary job is breaking TVs. Dear God.
Yeah. That's why he keeps them around too. That's why they're so powerful together.
Mm-hmm. Um, one person defending the TVs at home, the other person out breaking
Yeah.
the TVs. That's
Yeah.
why they're a
The two
powerful duo.
genders.
Yeah, those are the two genders. I'm gonna begin the speed draw.
Oh
Um,
yeah. God.
so 16.11. We cut back to Skitter, and no time has passed. The gun was fired, and now the bullet hits. So that's where we are, time wise. Classic Skitter moment. She tries to jump out of the way of the bullet, but it doesn't work. Um, Feeling the force of the hit, Skitter assumes the bullet goes right through her. We learn in a minute that's not true, but reeling as she falls to the floor, she can't even really think. But despite this, she's able to. Oh, I gotta switch to that. She's able to send out her spicy bugs from her costume onto the uncostumed Coil and his soldiers, and so he's getting a face full of spice. Um, and spiderweb cords are flying around the room to pull on the aim of different guns. And between that and the spicy bugs, Coil's backing out of the room and he's trying to fire his gun. And he fires till it's empty, but he doesn't manage to hit Taylor a second time. Or Skitter. Definitely Skitter in these high intensity situations.
Mm-hmm.
Seeming to use his power on the fly, Coil is losing his composure. He seems to have started to give the same order on both realities. Like, that's the only way I can determine, like read when he's saying, like, he says, what is it? He says, fill, doot, doot. Fill it with bullets. No, scratch that. So he says that, which implies to me that he gave a near identical command almost at the same time on 2 timelines, which is a little dicey when you're trying to use the power defensively. So that's why I read it as him losing his composure. It's kind of like you have to make some assumptions with Coil's power, like when he is and is not employing a new timeline, basically.
It is like crazy. I mean, I know that he like had to do this, but like it is crazy that he is just fully there when normally he is like in his day to day he's like so cautious and always
this is the
has
exact
somebody
kind
like
of situation where you don't want to be there.
Yeah,
Like,
and I know
the
that it's like he
precautions
just
he took,
wanted
but
to make sure that it got taken care of, and so he felt like he needs to be there using his power or whatever. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't have risked it, but he also like does need this to work out perfectly. Like he needs to kill her or things with the Undersiders. Like, because he's like trying to maintain, you know, a facade with the rest of the Undersiders right now.
right, and I mean, like, if he was successful with this, he maybe could have, like, pulled off his overall plan to make them feel betrayed by her and sort of split up as a group so then they wouldn't notice other stuff happening. And, like, he's already explained he has the plan to sort of fracture them out into other cities, and then they would just be, like, exactly his pawns. And while he might let them escape custody for now, whenever he needs a new chip with the protectorate, he'd probably like actually capture one of them and take them to jail, you know?
Yeah, probably.
So let's see here. Doot doot doot. Where was I? Oh yeah. Do we want to take a moment? Can you just talk about the art? Explain what part of the chapter this is. I have a feeling like it could be either Taylor having smoke inhalation or right at the end of the chapter when she takes that guy's helmet and then puts bugs in his mouth. Because it looks like a bug mouth.
Yeah, she's bug mouthing him. She's taking his helmet off.
That's what I initially thought it was. But I mean,
and
that's
I'm probably
yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I'm probably going to because I don't want anybody to like, I don't know, to like, because this isn't like my preference for the art either. Like I think I am enjoying doing it and it's fun and everything. And it makes sense because she can't see shit right now. And so it's like kind of been hard to like find things to draw, which is like part of why I'm doing the style and stuff. But I'm probably going to swap back in the next, it's not the next arc 18 or whatever. So
I was gonna ask, like, are you gonna do maybe 2 more chapters of this for the 12, 13, and then
I'm gonna finish off the arc with these, and then we'll probably.
Are you gonna do a new style or kind of like switch perspectives in some way?
I haven't decided yet. I'll need to read the chapters to figure out what we want to do. So for the next two, for the next 2 chapters or whatever, we'll stick with this. And then I think I want to do something a little different. Like I know we talked about before that about like expanding out of Taylor's POV more. I would want to do probably a style shift along with that a little bit. Nothing crazy,
Well,
but
now might
like,
be the time to do it. Like, given
and this would be the time to do it. So I'll have to read a couple of Arc 18's chapters and go from there. But yeah, I do like these more like abstract painterly ones are fun, but I feel like I don't want to disappoint people.
Well, I mean, I like them. So
Yeah.
but
yeah, it's her taking off his helmet and bug mouthing him.
Yeah, nice. For arc 17, like, do you know what you want to do?
You were gonna do the art, remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do the art. Right. I forgot about that a little bit, but I can do that. It will not be
I mean, you
as
don't have to.
good
You're the
per
one.
se.
I was wanting. I'll have to see because I want to do, yeah, more William art. This is what everybody wants. I was maybe gonna
I
do
think this may be
just like
Greg
little.
shocked, just waiting to jump ship.
I was maybe going to do, don't hold me to this because it honestly depends on if my life continues to be absolutely insane and I just like keep giving COVID over and over again. Um, but I was probably going to do just little like pixel art busts of everybody, and I'll just do like two of those a chapter or two of those one of those a chapter until
Mm.
all of them are drawn, um, rather than like scenic art,
Well,
I
if we had
guess.
those, then that would supplement with what I'm gonna make. And I was
Yeah, yeah,
thinking,
yeah, yeah.
okay, so I the actual kind of art that I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to use the word good, but my best art form that is a visual medium is probably pencil drawings.
That's
And
fine.
I don't know how to, like, I've done drawings in the past that do not like could not take a good picture of it for my life or for the life of me.
Hmm.
I don't know
Well,
if
I don't know if your phone does this, but most, well, do you have a, you don't have a Samsung, you have a Motorola or something.
yeah,
Um, at least like
it's not
when
very good.
I'm in my phone app, there's like a scan document button. And that makes taking pictures of art much, much, much easier. I'm so relieved that they have invented this.
Okay, I'll have to
So
get
I
your
would
help with
probably
that.
check
Honestly,
that out. Or I could take a picture of it for you. Either one works, and then
we
you
might need to
just
do
like
that.
edit it a little bit. But yeah, I know because it's like hard um
It'll like
to
pull
like
the
get
shading in
digital
wrong, and
art.
like everything
I
that
know.
my entire style is based on how much I shade. Like I have this we did this game as part of a big long Pokemon thing that me and Greg were doing with one of our other friends, and one of the games was the classic where you get a Pokemon, either you draw a number or you have somebody like put out the name of the Pokemon, and then you have to competitively draw the Pokemon from memory with no images of it. Um,
Hmm.
and I drew this really insane looking Coughing. It was really awesome. I still have it. It's a great piece of art, in my opinion. It's one of the best I've ever done, and
Hmm.
looks like shit in photo.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're a traditional artist, you also have to be a fucking like photo editor.
Yeah, yeah.
It is very annoying. I've dealt with a lot of that. And like editing, I don't know about you, but like having to edit my photos of my art to make them look better does
Yeah, I
make
had
me
to
feel like a
digitally.
cheat.
Yeah, it felt like defeating the purpose. I once had an image of a bee that I wanted to like turn into a watermark, and I had to make it black and
Hmm.
white, and so that takes off all the shading or whatever. So I had
Hmm.
to like go in and like try to manually take off all the right parts of the shading so that it's still like the outline of the bee. I never got it to work. That watermark never worked out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, honestly, like, because when I started doing this, I like thought that for some of the interludes I would do non-digital art, but it's honestly such a fucking pain because like as well as like the fact that it's like you have to get supplies and stuff, and then
well, part
on
of why
top
I
of
was
that you're
thinking
doing the art
pencil. I just got my
on.
drawing board back, so
Oh yeah. Well, that's not. Pencil is good, but like other,
yeah,
like
yeah.
my go-to traditional medium is watercolor.
Mm.
And so like that's a whole nother thing. And then fucking trying to get it to look right digitally again. That's like it's like a whole nother.
Yeah,
It's like you have to redo it again. It's very frustrating. So I get it, but I'll help you figure it out.
cool. Um, uh, Greg says, I think my coughing was also fabulous. It was a good round. Yeah, no, you also had like a really good one. It had like really clean lines and it had like this really cute style. Mine was like a nightmare. Um, I think I've already shown it to you in the past, Victoria, but I should show you again.
I don't recall it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll
Well,
have to find it.
yeah. Anyway, back
Anyways,
to back to Worm. Where are we? We were. Oh yeah. So yes, filling the room with bullets was the plan, and he said not to do it. And I had said, I thought maybe her like ropes would have pulled the guns, and they would have all shot each other or shot Coil or something.
oh,
Um,
that's a good one.
Because, like, I thought maybe he just aced himself in another timeline, and then he does it
I
again
do
with
like the
the
idea
grenades.
that he's dying in other times.
Yeah, that she's, like, straight up killing
And
him
he's
here.
like, yeah, he's like straight up getting murdered like 6 times during this fight, and he's like, fuck.
I can't even be here.
Yeah.
Um,
He does do that. He does just leave.
yeah, he totally just bails on the fight midway. It's really funny.
It's like, yeah, it's like actively happening. And I think that must have been it, is that she's like killed him at least once. And he's like, I just need to go.
Yeah, when we get there, I'll like pull out the quote, but there's a point when she's like, "Did I beat him?" Anyway, so Coil's new plan is to burn the room with her locked inside.
Mhm.
So the bugs can sense Molotov cocktails from like chemical smells in the air, and she knows that the guys closest to her are wearing gas masks. So she's like feeling absentmindedly for the hole in her midsection where she got shot, and then she instead burns her fingers a little bit on the still hot bullet that's stuck in the front of her armor. This is when she realized she hasn't been shot through, and her armor actually is bulletproof. And then,
Mhm.
as the soldiers go to light the Molotov cocktails they have, she uses her bugs to slide her pepper spray into her hand from her compartment. And then the guy's 10 feet away, but she's like a master of this shit. And her brain is a goddamn targeting computer. And she nails
Mhm.
the flame with the thing and turns his hand into a bit of a flamethrower. Um, and so the other soldier has to bail because the Molotov is getting bound to his hand by spider silk. And Coil he's getting pissed. He manages to get the bottle off the one soldier's hand. He throws it, but not like at Taylor. He throws it between the containment foam pile she's stuck behind and the door so that she just has no direction to get to the door. And then when the guy realizes that he's going to get trapped in there, then he tries to run out the door and Coil shoots him. And then another soldier kicks him into the wreckage of the unlit Molotov. So then he lights up. And presumably the one that he had also is in the room still, but that never comes up. Maybe it fell in the containment foam. The door gets closed and locked or whatever. Not that she could really get to it, but Scooter goes into panic for a moment. She describes it as an animal panic, and then recalls such things as a wolf or an ape. But Taylor, you are an ape.
I
People,
always think of the scene in the second interlude, Victoria's interlude, where the guy, she like says his eyes are like rolling around in his head because he's having like an animal panic.
yeah.
And so whenever somebody else, because I'm like, that's obviously what Wildbow sees animal panic as. So whenever somebody
I don't
else
think it's
he describes as
universally
having,
that. I think that she was
I
just
know, but
like,
every time somebody else is having animal panic, I'm imagining their eyes like rolling around in their head.
it's the only way. Yeah.
It's the only way. And she doesn't need her eyes, so they've just been rolling this whole time. Oh my god.
They're totally rolling. She's
Oh
like,
my
this room
god.
got really bright. I know I can only see light and dark, but it is pretty light in here.
It's pretty crazy in here.
Um, where are we? So we're here, and then so Skitter is able to bring herself back into the moment, and the first background task she's doing is to summon all the bugs in her range, which is, of course, extended from normal into this area. So she's drawing them here, and she'll get more and more as the fight goes, which is how she sort of propels her army, etc. As Coil leaves the building, Skitter figures out her general location. She thinks that she's maybe in Genesis's territory, given how deserted things are. And she's in like a house that's the only house on a block, and finds that a chain link fence has been put up around the property to try and keep her in. And there's like a dozen vehicles pointing headlights at the building. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Deciding to take the gloves off, Skitter does bite Coil several times with Black Widows. He seems unconcerned, like he expected this to happen, and took anti-venom already for Black Widow venom specifically. After all his people are out, except the guy that he shot and pushed onto a pile of broken glass, Coil tells them to burn the building to the ground. So I assume that they light the bottom of the house on fire too, and she's in the second story, in a room with only one door and one window. So the windows are I think there's only one window, but the window is boarded up with hex screws, and Skitter consciously only uses a few of her bullets and uses them to shoot at boards, trying to line up shots with both sides of the inside and outside of the window to get maximum board destruction here. But her gunshots, as I said it here, when she starts shooting, they start shooting. A dozen automatic rifles shoot at the house. Weirdly, they don't kill her off with that. They don't manage to. I don't know. I guess that they're just not.
They're bad shots, and I don't. They can't like tell
They
where
can't
she is in
actually
the
see
room.
her. Yeah, but
Yeah, because it's like through the boards.
I think even when she's shooting, it's probably hard to tell that like where the gunshot is in the room. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So probably they are just random firing at the room. But
Mm-hmm.
and she's flattening herself, so she's a pretty narrow profile as a target.
I don't know if she said something actually insane is what she's doing. Let me go look at the quote. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Taylor? Let me see.
I laughed. It made my
Iterate.
chest seize up in pain. It probably sounded a little crazed, but I laughed. It was too much.
No, no, not that, not that. I'm trying to find the spot.
She ducked her head low to keep breathing below the smoke line. She doesn't think she's gonna burn to death. She thinks that she's gonna oxygen starve.
She says, I went low, hiding not at the base of the window, but near the corner of the room, lying with my feet pointing towards them, my hands over my. Okay, I think I misread this the first time. I was like, I read as her hands and feet pointing towards them, and I like could not figure out what in the world she was doing. So she's just lying on the ground. It's fine.
Yeah, I think she's
I
doing
just
like
thought
a
she was
really
doing.
narrow profile against the wall at the side. She like rolled out of the way more or less. So they're probably shooting at
Yeah,
the center, and they're missing
yeah.
her because everyone, even if they're varying
Because
their
she's a
shots, they're
skinny
probably not
legend.
shooting
That's why.
all the way over at the end. I mean, this is another thing. Me and Taylor, same height, same stick frame. Um, flat as a surfboard, the both of us. Um, let's see here. Okay, so while this is happening and they're wearing out their first volleys, Skitter starts using bugs to eat out vehicle
Yeah,
wires
pardon.
until the headlights start going out, and then she's constantly on the edge of like passing out due to smoke inhalation. She's trying to not cough and stuff. There's a whole bunch of things. I shorten this chapter a lot because a lot of things do happen, but I would just be saying the same thing as the chapter if I kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Um. So the swarm's clones start getting made, and they get uh, and they shoot at those a bunch. I don't know. I messed up this sentence clearly. I don't know how to grammar correct this on the fly. The baddies are reloading in shifts, and they're all keeping up a constant like smaller amount of fire on the house. She gets a bunch out there of the swarm clones, and then it's more and more difficult for them to maintain fire on all of them. So eventually, it gets to the point where Skitter doesn't think she can stay in the room any longer. She's just going to suffocate. Um, and climbing out of the window, she gets shot in the left arm, which she's a righty, so at least it wasn't her main arm.
Yeah. And she's like mostly fine.
Yeah.
She
Um,
like doesn't use her arm for the rest of the chapter, but like it seems fine.
well, the thing is, like, it probably like broke her arm or whatever, but I
Yeah.
don't think that it goes through the
Well, and when I'm thinking
stuff.
about like the logistics of it, like getting like when you're getting shot in the torso, the problem is that the torso has nowhere to move, and so it's like a huge impact. But like getting shot in the arm is just gonna push your arm back mostly. So like you're gonna get way less of an impact
I don't
than
think it breaks her arm, but it could. I like in a situation where it's
it
not
could
going
have broken her
through,
arm.
it could break your arm. I think because
Yeah.
there's so much impact, and like I know that it's like got wiggle room and there's air, but like it's still like this hard whack, you know.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. But where are we? So. Yes, I hadn't mentioned it before. In my summary here, but I did mention it in my sort of more aloud thinking that she has to drop to the ground from the second story. The enemy uses another Molotov to burn away a swarm clone that was climbing the chain link fence. And you know, she's been doing the work. She's been having them like fall over when they get shot and stumble around and stuff.
Yeah.
She's
She
really
makes
doing
them
the
look
most.
realistic.
Yeah. She's climbing away on three limbs. I didn't write it down, but I think she might put like a. Does she
Yeah,
do a
so
clone over
she's
above her?
crawling and then she has like a running person above her.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're shooting mostly at her torso that isn't actually there.
Yeah. Um. And so So she's using psychological warfare now, and the bugs are talking to the soldiers and all, you know, super distracting stuff. Um, it only works to a certain extent, so she decides on a new plan. Coil keeps not saying not to use grenades, so she starts pulling a bunch of grenade pins. Um,
Yeah.
After enough pins are pulled, they start like throwing the grenades away, and they misthrow one of them, and it destroys part of the fence. So she's finally got a place to exit from. Um, and then, because climbing the fence, as we saw with that decoy, was probably not going to work.
Hmm.
Not like something you can do fast. Because anytime a decoy got to the fence, they shot it way more. Um,
Hmm.
uh, then a flare is used to try and see if a swarm clone is the real Skitter, and they start to use more flares once they realize they can do it effectively. So Skitter steps up the distracting talking. She tries to ASMR some of these enemy soldiers, and you know the worst part is probably at least one of them like
Yeah, one of
um,
them got nice ASMR tingles.
he's like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool. I like fighting
Ooh.
Skitter." Um, as the psychological warfare starts working on the soldiers with her, you know, extreme ASMR, then they start firing more indiscriminately, and a dirt clod flies up and lands on her. So she lets out a tiny yell, and then some lady soldier notices and goes for a flare to throw at her. She's almost caught, but she pulls the pin on a canister-styled grenade that's in this lady's belt, and you know she thinks to herself that this may in fact be an incendiary grenade that kills this woman like super hard, or It might be a stun grenade, which would knock out all of her bugs. But best of both worlds, it's neither of those things. It's a smoke grenade.
Mm,
Um,
perfect.
so, given that it is a smoke grenade, this lady starts making the battlefield smoky. She goes, ugh, and throws the grenade, but Skitter finds more smoke grenades on the other soldiers and pulls all the pins. And once they're all going off, she's picking them up and moving them around with bug-based locomotion. And there's smoke everywhere, and this is when Coil super bails. He drives off.
He just fucking leaves.
Yeah. As I said on this, safety is getting dicey even with his power. Um, and putting bugs on all the enemy helmets allows Skitter to more or less make the Soliton radar from Metal Gear, so she can see like their vision cones. And she moves past a guard, and one last bluff with Bug speak behind you. But she really is behind him, and so she grabs his helmet and puts bugs in his mouth, like she's in Kingdom Hearts. And before he can yell out, she starts beating him mercilessly with a baton, typical Taylor stuff. And she beats him until he stops moving. She's like, I don't know if I knocked him out or if he just realized that he should stop moving, so I would stop beating him. And then she takes his keys and quietly starts up the nearest truck. And miraculously learning how to drive in the moment, she makes her escape.
Okay, we can talk about the driving.
Okay.
What the fuck, Taylor? Why doesn't she know? Okay,
Well, that's
it
why
makes more
after the
sense
page
now
break, I
that
just wrote parking because I knew you would have a lot to say.
It's just now that I'm remembering
Now that I
that
think about it
she
more,
is blind, that she couldn't remember. She probably like is not remembering where the park, because the parking is always like
it's
it's
always a
always
little
all the way
different.
forward, right? No, it's not all the way forward. Usually, always.
I'm not sure how consistent it is because I don't really drive automatic vehicles.
Well, I don't know. I think it's almost always all the way forward, but it's fine. It's just that to
See, like,
me,
this is the thing. If
an
I was blind,
emergency
I would
an
not be
emergency brake
successful.
is so much less consistent. Because like
Yeah. Well,
I've
it
seen emergency
depends.
brakes all over the place. I see that sometimes they're like in the center console, and sometimes they're like under the dash somewhere.
I'm
And
just
like
gonna say, I'm just gonna assume it's the style that you grab with your right hand and you just yank it upward, like the
use
one in
yank
my
it, yeah.
car. You know the one. Just the
Yeah.
really basic one. Because like the
Yeah.
other one, I can think of a truck one that's like a tiny little lever that you push down with your foot, and there is zero chance that she would be able to operate that one blind, having never
Yeah,
driven
mine
before.
is a mine, but I have an anti-blind person car. As we said earlier,
Yeah, you
mine
have
is
a
just
weird
a tiny
spaceship
little,
dial.
mine's like a little button thing that I pull up.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Like mine is such a
Um,
like physical mechanism that like it obviously could break because anything can break, but like you can tell if
but
it's
it
working or
feels,
not.
yeah, you can feel when it turns on, which I prefer, like when you can pull it up and like you can actively like feel the car restricting when it's those kinds of physical ones. Um, which I feel like is like it makes you feel safer. I don't know, but
Hmm. I also
I don't
have the
know.
option of leaving my
Taylor
car in
uses it.
first
It's
gear on
fine.
top of that, so like
Yeah. And that must have been the thing. That must have been the thing. She must have accidentally, instead of putting it in drive, she just put it in one of the like gears that
what
like an
if they
automatic has.
turned it off in first gear? I mean, it's still almost unbelievable that she would successfully get the friction
No,
point on her first try.
but they don't turn it off in first gear because when you're manual, or sorry, when it's automatic, you're putting it all the way to
I know,
park.
I know, I know. But
I
you
don't
can
think
still just turn the
I think
keys
that
off, right? Can't you?
I think most of them prevent you from doing that. It locks the keys unless you put it in park.
Oh, like the ignition has a. Okay. I
It like
hadn't really thought
stops.
about
Yeah,
that.
so when you like are pushing when you push the keys all the way forward, then it is in a locked position until you pull it all the way back, and it only lets you pull it all the way back once it's in parked. This is like, and like obviously not
That sounds
like
okay.
like
As
older
someone
cars.
who like yeah drives an older style car, like that sounds dangerous to me because one of the things about like those cars with the auto start that they couldn't get the computer to stop accelerating. Like if that happened in
Hmm.
my car, if the pedal got like physically jammed down, I could pull the
Hmm.
keys. But if you're saying that you couldn't do
Yeah.
that, that sounds like double
No, you
dangerous.
can't pull the keys. When that
Ugh, I don't
happens,
like that.
you're supposed to use you use the emergency brake. So you
Ugh, that'd
put
break everything.
it's very dangerous, yes. So you're supposed to put both of your feet like on your
Brake
physical brake
pedal,
as hard
and
as
then
you
you
can,
also
and
pull
then
the
you
lever.
pull.
God,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then
that's
you pull the
scary.
lever. It's scary, yeah. And I don't think I'd be able to do any of that because of how spaceship my car is. So I would just drive off the road. But
Jeez.
you know.
Yeah.
Phil said, I can't believe she learned to drive without her dad's help. It was such a thoughtless act to make him miss that milestone. Honestly, and then she
Haley's
immediately
never
after
thinking
this
of
part,
Danny.
speaking of her being thoughtless, okay, because she goes and parks the car, and then she's like, well, now time to choose between my dad and the Undersiders again. And guess what she chooses?
Yeah, yeah. This is like a
But
whole
this one,
page of her like going, okay, check cell phone. It doesn't work. Throw cell phone in case it's the tracking device. And then she like thinks about like where the Undersiders will be, thinks about where her dad is, and she's like, I can only save one group. Not my dad. And I
no,
think she makes
but
the right decision personally.
her explanation is it makes sense that if she's gonna have to go get both of them regardless, and if she has the Undersiders with her, they can help her with her dad. But if she has her dad with her, then he's going to drag her down with the other situation. So like I understand the decision, like it does make sense in that. Um, but and I think it's way more likely that the Undersiders are in trouble because they were actively with his people. So
And like
like,
as much as he
eh,
could like theoretically threaten Danny or something, he would have to like do that, get the message to her, like
yeah,
possibly like have him tricked out of being in the hospital where he's in. It would be a whole
yeah,
goddamn
it's
thing.
like more steps, but he already has her. And then as she deduces, right in this last section, the teleporter that he used on her was specifically one that mimicked fucking Trickster's power. And so
Mhm.
that means he swapped in a body double for her, which is super scary
Yeah.
because like the body double could be evil or something. So like it makes more sense to go check on the Undersiders because as far as she like it's like a Schrodinger's Danny situation where she knows that the Undersiders are like definitely not in a great situation.
Yeah, and so and I mean like again, like she says, if she went to Danny and she checks on him and she has to break him out of something, she has to like explain the whole thing, figure out
Yeah.
what he's up for,
I
placate
just
him forever. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, if I were her, I would like put a bunch of bugs in his mouth and then like beat him with a baton until he stopped moving or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just what you do to people.
It's just like the best way to get somebody under control, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's why it's good that you have a bug based power set.
Good
Um,
thing. Oh, yeah, and not an Amy-based power set.
yeah. Um,
The safest way.
yeah. What was I gonna say? So yes, all of this amounts to her um, deciding that she has to go to save the Undersiders who are with Dinah.
Mhm.
Do you have more to, I guess, add or anything. I kind of this part after the page break, although it is only a one page of text,
No.
a little light.
She just makes the same moral decision as she always does. So, and then she goes through hoops to explain it to herself, which after reading Marcus's chapter, I'm kind of like tired of. Like, I just want her to be like, found family is the most important thing, and then go and do it.
Yeah.
I don't need some long-winded explanation as to why whatever.
Well, another thing is like she really has this image of herself as being like this really family-oriented person. So like just that image of herself is enough to keep this like top of mind a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
However true or not true it is. That's how she sees herself.
Yeah, not true. She has been family oriented this whole time. She's just, she's just, and that's fine. Like, I don't think that it is like inherently good or bad to be family oriented, but I do think that it is kind of inherently bad to take the people that you supposedly care about and then like completely push them to the back of your mind while they're in like a dying and starving city with no help while you have the resources to help at all. That part I do think is bad. So it's just it's just typical Taylor.
Typical Taylor.
Typical Taylor.
Well, I guess final chapter thoughts. I think this one is like an all-timer. I think this is one of the best fights in the whole book. It definitely blew me away when I first listened to it. Apparently, our friend Bryant, apparently his dad heard the audiobook of this while Bryant was listening to it and just sort of became enthralled, having no context, and just like listening to this chapter only.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cut it down like vastly because it is just like a fight chapter basically, but it rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I guess moving on to the other portions of this, I cut out the arc stuff thingy, but I will say I do think that this is the most like climactic chapter of the thing, even though there's more action to be had in the next chapter, and then proper like I mean, this one doesn't really have like I guess I don't want to talk about the next two chapters too much, but yeah, it's this is our final climactic like ultra fight, and then there will be more like low key fights that are still like high stakes.
Yeah, I hate the next chapters. I mean, I don't hate them, but it's just like it's like tropes that make me so stressed.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me
So
the next chapter was your least favorite in the book, I'd believe you. Like,
it's
you are
not because
stressed even when we just talk about it sometimes.
I get stressed when we talk about it because I like can't like it
You
just like
can't be
hurts
in
my
that
heart so
space.
bad.
Yeah.
The pain that like I would feel like putting Brian through that, like it just makes me so distressed. Even though it's resolved quickly, like you just know
It's resolved
for
same
those like
chapter, and it's still like,
for those few minutes, that was absolutely devastating to him, and not just to him, but like to all of the rest of them as well. But
Luckily,
like,
just two others, but
Brian is doing the worst emotionally. He's like, this is all he has going for him, this relationship with Taylor. So we do not have. I don't know. It's just painful for me, but I
and
don't
it's always
unenjoy
I
the
don't know what it is,
chapters.
but like the misunderstanding between friends trope or like episodes like that are
It
just like,
hurts.
get it over with already.
I was just and when I first read it, I was so scared that it was going to
Be the new
continue
normal. Yeah.
for like that it would be like the main premise of the next arc or something.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, I'm glad it isn't, but even the like 1.5 chapters or however long it is unacceptable.
Yeah.
How could he hurt Brian like this?
Yeah.
And by he, I mean Wildbow specifically.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because anything that a character does, Wildbow wrote it.
It's his fault. It's directly his fault.
I know. It's
I
like,
can't believe Wildbow put Brian into a fridge and then he made him fall in love with Taylor and then he made her break his heart with a misunderstanding. Boilies. But it's fine. It's resolved like 2 seconds later.
yeah. So for this chapter, hopping into the characters section, not very long. I'm only going to talk about Taylor and Coil. Taylor is able to keep pretty calm given the situation.
Yeah.
She shows her like inhuman abilities. She shows like how far, like, I feel, when you have those like, wow, this anime character, they really got to show off their stuff and show how they're way stronger than they were 12 episodes ago. Well, the gulf between her at the start and now is just, it's so huge. It's like ridiculous.
I also think this was like for Taylor, she keeps like thinking to herself like, oh my gosh, I'm so trapped. Aren't I supposed to be like getting expanded powers right now because I'm trapped? And it's like, but the whole time she's never feeling trapped. So I just think it's funny that she's like, come on, this is the perfect time for a second trigger event. And it's like, first of all, no, because you thought of it.
Well, I think, doesn't she think that because she thought it, she can't get it? They always think that.
I don't think she does. I think
doesn't
she's
think
just
that.
like,
okay.
She's like, well, I guess I won't get it. But she's like thinking that she's trapped, but like she's obviously not, because like she's physically trapped, sure, but she's not in a hopeless state like she typically is when she's getting like her buffed power.
Yeah.
There's no point in when she's like, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, and she says, yeah, this would be the perfect moment for a second trigger event. Hadn't Lisa said that my mind power link was enhanced whenever I felt trapped? I doubted I'd ever feel more trapped than I did right at this moment. I couldn't see just how far the fire reached because I was blind, and the heat of the fire was killing my bugs I needed for sensing my surroundings. So she does mention there's several things. She only has a minute or two of air, or, probably regardless of which of the 3 fire-based deaths she has a minute or 2 left.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like at a certain point, why quibble? Smoke inhalation, lack of oxygen, dying due to flames or heat. You're dead.
Yeah.
All terrible ways to die. None of those are good. But you're right that she doesn't think about the fact that you can't get it when you think about it. Although several other characters do mention that to themselves in their head. But let me think. What was I talking about? She is very, like, I don't know, just like her determination, and like that even when she thinks it's hopeless, she just keeps going, I guess. I don't know what word that is, but yeah.
Her I can't think of the word
she's just
either.
got grit,
Yeah.
And then on the Coil side of things, Coil's an idiot. He fucks us up just like he fucks up everything.
What a doofus. Can't even get one plan done correctly.
Do the plan right. I don't know. What do you have to say about Taylor and or Coil?
I feel like there's honestly like this chapter is so plot driven that like I don't really like have a ton to say about them. There's not a lot of character moments. It's very just like Taylor doing what she's gotta do, which is always her.
Both of them
Um,
are sort of embodied by their like chess masteriness during this. And
mhm.
like uh it's like I said in the themes, there are a lot of character parallels, so I guess we should mention that again now. It's just that they kind of are like Coil's a good person to compare against Taylor, just like, you know, how most of her antagonists kind of are.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
um,
he's just kind of there trying to like scramble to get things to work, but after a certain point he just bails, which is really really funny. I guess I really do now that we've said it, like I really do think that he like must have died like pretty soon before that, and then he was like, I just need to go because this is not a good situation.
no more grenades.
No more grenades, please, please stop with the grenades.
Yeah, like in M voice, please.
Yeah.
Um, powers, knowledge. We talked about all the little bits, but this is like a culmination of all her power building up to now, and it was pretty lit.
hmm Yeah,
Um,
she got to use a bunch of her techniques all at once.
yeah, all
Bill
of.
says I need to head out. We'll catch the end tomorrow. I'll post the link I mentioned also. Have a good night.
Thanks, Val.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye. Um. So yeah. And yeah, it is kind of. It's cool to have to think through Coil's power, like what's happening, and to not have definite answers as to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like funny because Taylor keeps thinking about it too. She's like, "What did I do in that reality?" Because
Oh yeah. No, I said I was gonna
because
get to it at the
he's been
time, but when he leaves, uh, let's see here. Uh, I sense Calvert's truck pulling away, and then skip a little bit. His retreat left me wondering if he deemed the situation unsolvable. Had he deemed this a loss? I beat him?
Does he think he lost? Like, shut the fuck up, Taylor.
Did I do that?
He's so goofy.
I think I want to hop along to the audience participation. Um,
hmm
so it was, of course, the which cell block leader do you find most interesting from this chapter for .z, and first 2 plus 4 times 5 had said Glastigüenye, not just because I have zero clue how to pronounce her name. Vale said, I agree with Glastigüenye, and then wrote some horrifying thing, or as I mentally call her, Glass Stick Yuan. Which I can imagine going to that, but
Yeah.
no.
Well, that's how the Wenye because it's an E at the end, so it's Uaine, which it would be like UN or UI or
Well, but
something.
the reason I'm hesitant to put what we would consider like common practice stuff on this, it's because like I'm pretty sure it comes from Gaelic, so like it's not gonna follow the phonics of English, like just straight up.
Yeah, but like I didn't recognize that as Gaelic because like I don't know shit about other languages. So it's like when you
Mm.
have no basis for that kind of stuff. I can see things and I can see when they look kind of French
Mm-hmm.
because French words look a certain way.
Well, I can say like from having listened to like not a lot of Gaelic music, but some. Like
hmm
the reason I believe like the Wenye sounds right is because that's what a lot of the words sound like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just kind of got those sounds going on like a lot in the basic
Y-
stuff I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
then Greg says, I also find Glass-Steagall fascinating. She's got an almost Lovecraftian thing going on where she sees beyond the curtain and struggles to express what she experiences in terms that make sense to her or others. But she does it with mythological fae instead of tentacles, so it's more charming. And then teacher deserves a special shout out for somehow being the least interesting cell block leader and also the one that deserves to be that most deserves to be decked. And then
Yep.
2 plus 4 times 5 agreed that teacher sucks. Um, and then did you have any side answers? Anybody?
I don't think I was particularly interested in anyone in this chapter. Like I said, I thought I like what I like. I became more interested in teacher later on, but in this chapter, I literally was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That was like my baseline impression of him. Um, yeah, I mean, generally, I want to learn more about Lab Rat, but that's because of stuff that happens later.
There's I think that right after I read Worm was probably like I can't quite remember when I first watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but the season 2 opening where it goes, she's an ingenue. Like I don't think that was in my brain yet, or I would have found the name ingenue very funny already.
Yeah.
Um, but I think sleeper hit, one that I didn't think about, but now again because I mentioned it earlier, think he's awesome. Is the one time we get to see Gavel fight, I'm just like, oh hell yeah.
That's funny. I don't recall that.
Well, you'll see it later.
I'm sure I will.
Yeah. Anyway, though, I think that's kind of all, unless you have any other stuff to say. I'm gonna maybe start up the outro music.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so, boop. Okay, so hopping over to the links. So the music in this episode is, as it has been for arcs 15 and 16, Monarch by ScarlettXOX, and you can find her at twitch.tv/Scarlet_Rogue. Next week is the last time we'll be using this song because we're going to grab another one for arc 17.
Yay.
And then our Discord server link can be found in the stream description and channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. And yeah, it's been great to have Vic here. We will be back next week. Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Bye.